Welcome, one and all, throughout time and space, for this episode of Weebs on the Weekends, the podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look at an anime that premiered 10 years ago. Today's episode, we will compile an official Weebs on the Weekends tier list for One Piece's arcs as they stand from Romance Dawn all the way to the land of Wano, with a reoccurring guest, Jack. My name is Sam Martinez. I'm a part-time weeb, full-time automail mechanic. With me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Johnson, part-time weeb, full-time Daigoku counselor. Please bear with us this episode as we are transitioning to newer technologies, technologies that are newer here to us at Weebs on the Weekends. As stated before, we will be compiling a tier list in this video, and we will also explain how we will be making this this list, as it will be our official Weebs on the Weekends list and reflect all of our opinions here. The visuals accompanying this episode will be available on our YouTube channel, and as always, time codes are in the description. Now, without further ado, please enjoy our episode. And we are live. Thanks again, gentlemen, for coming back. We really did enjoy that last talk that we had, where we spoke about 103 Mercy's Dragon Damnation, that One Piece special. And ever since then, our One Piece creative juices kept flowing, and Jay was the one who suggested that we all make a tier list of all of the One Piece arcs. And what we're here to do today is what we here at Weebs at Weekends normally do for our end of the year anime. Is we're going to do that to a tier list for the One Piece arcs instead, where we all come together with all of our with our collective tier list for the One Piece arcs, and we make an official Weebs on the Weekends tier list for One Piece as of 2024. And with me, as always, we have Jay, and we have our returning guest, Jack. And I just want to thank you guys for coming back again and willing to suffer through some of my misinformation that I may unintentionally give you guys. I realized that last episode I had spoken some foibles, and I do appreciate you guys coming back and speaking more One Piece with me and trusting that we can have a good time.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm in the camp of now that I understand One Piece fans a little bit better. And I don't think I'm on the side yet to say that I'm a fan of One Piece now that I've like consumed all the anime up to Egghead. But I'm definitely going to be a One Piece defender now because I don't see the value or the validity of when people say One Piece is too long. That's like saying that doesn't really have good merit of a opinion, especially if you're like, oh yeah, I watched 100 episodes of One Piece and it's just too much story, I guess. But it's like after watching it, now consuming it in a bulk section of like just my viewing habit, I'm like, it's so easy to consume it, and also there is this idea that One Piece needs to get good, but it's always good. And I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder where these misconceptions come from. And I think it just goes to show you about how the broadcasting of One Piece in the US specifically was, like how much it has like disturbed a whole generation of anime watchers to perpetuate this idea that One Piece is bad or it gets good or it's too long. So I'm glad that we can actually talk about this and do a anime versus manga kind of comparison, because I'm an anime only, and I think
Oh, okay.
Jack has read the manga probably like a good dozen times now.
Not
So
not a dozen. I've read some art. I've read some arcs dozens of times, but I haven't read the whole thing dozens of times. I'll tell you that. Well, that's interesting, and I'm first of all, Sam, Jay, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to join you guys. It's always a pleasure to discuss this this particular anime with you guys, and the all the different opinions and different viewpoints, and how these aspects of One Piece kind of affect us differently. I would say I'm not a manga only, but I am definitely a manga preferred. And while I've seen bits and pieces of the One Piece anime in the post time skip arcs, I don't think I've ever sat down and watched any post time skip arc in the anime in full. Um, but I certainly have for the pre time skip stuff. But my following of One Piece, the vast majority of my time spent following it in the last several years has been through reading the English translated official release of the manga. That's typically what I do now. So and that will definitely play into how I rank these arcs, and it'll be interesting because Jay, when it comes to some of these arcs, you will have seen how the anime portrays these in ways that I simply have not, and so it'll be very interesting to kind of see what um, elements of designs, fights, styles, contribute to our respective opinions given the differences in the medium. So that'll be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty interesting because that leads into with me with how I viewed One Piece, whereas Jack said that he was mainly like the written, but then like he would interspersely watch it. I was sort of the reverse, where I would interspersely watch it and then I started reading it. Whereas a little bit like Jack, I had watched the post time skip stuff. I've never seen it all to form, but enough to get a good grasp of things. I did see a lot of the East Blue stuff to fruition, but it was just very, very sparse. And then after a certain time, I just became a manga only. There would be times when I would go and watch the anime when I knew that a big fight was going to take place. But because I essentially knew what was going to happen, I mainly just stuck with the manga. So it will be very, very interesting to hear all of our lists. And before we go into our top tier list, let's just hop over here with a Sunny behind us for a little bit because I have a couple questions for you guys in regards to our list. And the first question would sort of be like what we were talking about, and it would the question would be like, with your list in mind, is there sort of a um, not necessarily a discretion, but is there a buyer beware or one fact that you want the audience to acknowledge that you kept in mind while fabricating your lists? Jack, we can start with you.
Okay, so when I made my particular tier list, I considered the opinions of me, myself, and I, and no one else. And I think that's important to know because I think to your average One Piece fan, my tier list is there will be several points of contention. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So there you go.
Okay, so that's a good solid answer. Jack's like, I'm going to be me. You guys can get with it or get off. That's good.
Yeah.
Jay, what about you? Do you have any warnings, bylaws, or facts that you want the audience to be aware of that you made, that want to be aware of that you use in the process of making your list?
Right. So, I mean, just to reiterate, I'm an anime only. I have not ever read a single chapter of One Piece now that I've looked back on my life as a manga and anime enjoyer. So I'm going this completely. And I did watch almost all episodes. I think I skipped a few just to
Oh
get
my
through certain
goodness.
arcs.
Wow, that's
So this
awesome.
was like a 3 month process of like over not 1,000 episodes, but I did everything after Innie's Lobby, essentially.
Hmm.
So I already had a good chunk of anime that I remember like vividly. So I was like, oh, everything after Indies Lobby I'm kind of like sketchy on, so like that's where I started. So everything is fresh in my head. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out in this. But yeah, read, not really. I watched everything from Indies Lobbies to Wano Country. So I'm
Okay.
up to date
Yeah.
and I'm trying to keep out of Egghead spoilers. So there's no Egghead spoilers in this going to talk. But yeah, for everything I'm going to put on the list and even on our tier list, it's up to Wano Country
Guys,
for all the
guys, I
arcs.
I apologize for interrupting and breaking this. Can I take just 30 seconds and I will be right back? Please forgive me.
Yeah, yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, of course.
So for me, I would like to say so. As I said, like I sort of like interspersingly like saw the different arcs. So I've probably dabbled in all but two at the time, and I would say there were like I said there were two arcs that I never really took the time to sit and sift through. But
Okay. Apologies, guys. I'm so sorry. Thank you, guys.
no worries, no worries. So I'll just repeat. Like for me, or at least for my list, I would say like there were two arcs that I knew that I skipped entirely. So I went back and I watched them both on the in the anime, and it sort of leads to my next question. But I would just bit of a side because Jay, I would say the way that you've talked about One Piece, especially in our previous episode, you would like just hearing you speak, like one would not surmise that you had not touched the manga at all because you were just very knowledgeable about things like the side stories that happen in the title covers. Like hearing you talk about that and pulling information about the different chapters and like the different stories, it's like, oh, okay, so he did read some of it. So like I didn't realize that when you went back and you did your 3 month quote unquote research that it was that deep of a dive. Um, just wanted to mention that. But
Oh, right. Yeah, because I mean,
yeah.
it's so easy to like just, follow. Again, One Piece fans are like some of the most dedicated people on the earth. Like archaeologists or the people that, update Wikipedia pages. So it's
Yeah.
really easy to get into like spaces of One Piece discussion without spoiling certain things, especially in the manga. But yeah, One Piece fans, at least as I've experienced them, especially with Jack being like the golden example, it's like,
The
yeah,
golden child.
they
Oh,
are.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, they are welcoming, and they're not going to go out their way of like, oh yeah, you know that someone got donut, and it's like, yeah, we're kind of over the whole spoiling One Piece thing, and we're trying to get this like welcoming vibe to the culture or the community. So yeah, I know enough about like the cover stories because like everything with Rob Lucci, my favorite character, and
Hmm.
certain like not Mormon, who's the tree dude with in the chest.
Diamond.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gaimon,
Gaimon.
yeah.
Diamond.
Like there's so much world building like adjacent to Luffy's adventure you can just delve into that you don't really have to follow the straw hats, which is kind of an amazing thing about One Piece. But yeah, I'm gonna go off onto a tangent about that. But yeah, I know enough from the manga stuff to inform my anime watching, but like there are the differences in the manga I don't know. So I'm looking forward to hearing
Oh,
Jack talk about that when it comes up.
okay. So, my second question, before we get to the tier list and we go over the rules and how we're gonna go do everything, is uh, just to give a little bit of a mystery to our tier lists. So, essentially, it would be when making this tier list, what was the arc that surprised you the most in where you placed it? You don't necessarily have to say where you placed it. Just name the arc and name one thing that led to that decision. So I'll go first to give an example. For instance, the arc that surprised me the most. Hold on 1 second. Dang it. I thought I had my tier list ready. Give me 1 second, guys. I thought it might. Okay, there you go. So and here I was trying to be prepared this entire time, trying to be professional. But so, for instance, to answer my question, right, just to reiterate, what was the arc that surprised you the most when making your tier list, and what was a deciding factor? So, the way to answer my question would be, for me, it was Little Garden, and the deciding factor is the parallels that I found within it. So first, we'll start with Jay.
All right, so thinking about that, I think it was like, what is the baseline good of One Piece? Again, like you can say like One Piece is a masterpiece, but there's always a ranking, especially while we're talking about ranking the arcs. So
Mm-hmm.
what's good and bad of each arc. So something that really surprised me is about the transitional arcs in One Piece,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that happen between sagas. And the one that really got me, or at least surprised me the most, was Amazon Lily.
Okay.
And I think that's just like what surprised me the most is how good it serves as a transition.
Okay, that's pretty solid. And once we get there, we'll be able to see like where it is on the list, and we can probably go more into depth on that. Jack, what would your answer be?
My answer would be the arc that surprised me the most was Fishman Island. Um,
Oh, okay.
I had made this tier list for myself several months ago, and that was before I had picked. I did this thing when I'd gone through the manga in 2023 again after watching the live action show, and I made it a point to stop at the chapter 597, which is the end of the first half, the pre-time skip portion.
Okay.
And I made it a point not to pick it up again for some time, let some time pass, and then I picked it up again in the new year, and I went through Fishman Island for what would be, I guess, the third time in the manga, and it blew me away in a way that it hadn't before. And I don't know if it's because I've gotten older and
Mm.
the things that take place in that arc move me more now than they did when I was younger reading it, but um, it very much surprised me. And so when I looked at my tier list in preparation for tonight's show, I ranked it up by a few as a result.
Oh wow. Okay. So that's very interesting. That is very interesting to hear. Um, uh, I guess like it just goes to show like with different types of literature, if you go back and you revisit it, you gain a different perspective, and you can have different appreciations for it. But sometimes crap is still crap. But with One Piece, we're definitely not talking about that for sure. So now, what we will do? I would say, like, is there anything else that you guys would like to mention or comments before we get on to our tier list and discuss how we're going to be making it?
I'm very excited to see what is the worst arc in One Piece for Jack and everyone.
um, no, just let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to hop over to the tier list right now. Smooth transition. Yes. First try, guys. And now, here we are. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the arcs as they are listed here. We'll start with this one, and we'll go in order of Jay, Jack, and myself, and where we placed said arc on the list. And then we will delegate and discuss on where it should be, come to a common consensus in where it should be on the list. I would say too, like once we give like our location, maybe give like a quick reason why we had placed it where it is on the list. So, Jay, for Alabasta, where did you place it on your list?
For my list, the Alabasta arc is A plus.
A
And a short
plus.
reason for that is Crocodile. I love him as a villain. Like he's just the guy.
He is him.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, Jay, I'm sorry, not Jay. Jack, do you agree or do you disagree on where Alabasta should be with your list?
I 100% agree.
Ooh, this is
Nailed it.
No,
so.
I do agree. I agree
Okay, yes,
100%.
yes.
But I do agree for slightly different reasons. I do love Crocodile as a villain, but for me, when I think about Alabasta, the truly cool thing about that arc to me is that every single Straw Hat fights,
Mm-hmm.
and that is something that is kind of taken for granted these days. But at the time, when this arc was still fresh, at least fresh in America, um, not everybody fought. You know, the closest you get is like Arlong Park, where even
Mm-hmm.
Nami doesn't technically fight, but in Alabasta, she fights. Everybody fights, and everybody bleeds, and everybody sweats, and everybody struggles, and everybody wins.
Yeah, so it feels like everybody sort of has stakes that are invested. Like they it literally have skin in the game at this point.
Yes, and I loved seeing all of the different characters, including Nami, have to earn their victories from
Mm-hmm.
their opponents within Baroque works. That just and obviously, you know, that was something of a trendsetter and sort of a pattern set for arcs to come. But Alabasta was the first time where it happened at that scale, and
Mm-hmm.
so I love it as a result.
So it's very interesting that we're essentially starting with a hat trick because I had placed Alabasta in A plus as well.
Hey, all right.
That is what I feel like we should have that name like if we all place it in the same tier because I was not expecting us to do that. That we just all just share the same brain cell in this regard. I would say yes.
It will probably not happen for all of these. So for most,
It's best that we get it out the way, right?
yeah.
I would say like for me, it was a big reason why I have Alabasta up there in the A plus is because it of the payoff, and I guess that's one thing that I should have mentioned too when we were discussing like what we all had in mind regarding our lists, because a lot of these arcs, as Jay had mentioned, they're very intertwined. You have arcs that sort of lead into others, and with Alabasta, you have several arcs that hint and lead to a culmination, a climax, if you will. And with Alabasta, it just really, really pays off with the background that they do with Baroque works and setting the tone as like this expansive organization that has like this reach everywhere. And when you go to Alabasta to find like the hornet's nest and just everything about it, it's just chef's kiss and how it's executed with the characters and everything else like that. So that was a big reason why I have it in the A plus tier. So
All right.
yeah, that's pretty awesome, guys. Way to go. So now let's see if we can I'm sorry. Because I feel like what you
All
said,
right.
Jack. Yeah. Let's see what we're going to lead with Drum Island. Now, Jay, where did you place Drum Island on your tier list?
Drum Island for me is a B plus.
Okay.
I put that there so just to give a little bit longer explanation, or you
Mhm.
guys can give shorter answers. But I just like the political intrigue of Drum Island more than like the action that's in it, and all the Tony Chopper stuff is cool. But I like how
Mhm.
Warple, is that
Walpole.
how you pronounce it?
I don't know.
Walpole,
WAPO.
Walpole.
Walpole,
Yeah.
yeah, Walpole is
Think WAPO. WAPO. Like
yeah,
people say Washington Post. WAPO
Walpole.
ooh, with an L.
okay, Walpole is like the first time we get to see like the whole political corruption side of like the One Piece theming, and it's like
Mhm.
it's very interesting that at the heart of One Piece, the whole freedom versus authority kind of struggle is that this is like the good first case example that One Piece is of this, or at least talking about like social political movements and what needs to happen or what happens with isolation. And I think that's like Oda's, insight into like Japanese thinking in certain
Yes,
ways
yes, yes,
in
yes.
politics. So it's like a perfect case example. And then again, this is like one of those, like, what is baseline good about One Piece? And I think Drum Island's right there.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a very good, insightful answer. Like you said, especially that parallel with the isolation that you made. That's a very good catch that you did right there. Jack, what about yourself? Where did you place Drum Island?
So I 100% agree with Jay. I put it in the same. I put it in the same slot again.
Oh. All right.
Um,
So, what was your reasoning? What was your reasoning?
well, kind of for the same reason. It's a very heartbreaking and heartwarming arc when you get right down to it. Um, I definitely think it's above average. I think your typical One Piece fan probably holds this one in higher esteem than a B plus, but
Hmm.
um, I I I do very much like it. I think in order to keep from just chin wagging and doing like just waxing poetic about each one of these arcs, I think what I'll do is I'll limit my comments to just a couple of things that I think that to this day I find fascinating about each of these individual pieces of the One Piece puzzle. And when it comes to Drum Island, two things. Fun fact: this is the first time Holy Land Marie Joie is ever seen.
Really?
It is seen in a flashback that Vivi has. Either it's Vivi or Dalton. I think it's actually Dalton, now that I think about it.
Hmm.
Uh, and it is a time in which Dalton remembers that he has actually seen Vivi before when she was a young child at Holy Land Marie Joie when Wapol smacked her in the face, and she
Oh,
took it like a champ.
yeah.
And instead of a diplomatic incident unfolding over there, Dalton was impressed by her ability to be courteous in spite of the fact that this rando stranger just attacked her, claiming to be a king. So that's one interesting thing. It's actually spelled differently in the manga. If you go back and look at the chapter in the English translation, it's Marie Joie as in like Jois, whereas
Hmm.
later times it's Joa. So there's also a reference to dragon within that very flashback. You see a picture of dragon with a lion's mane in it. And they're talking about how he's becoming a threat. So that's interesting. That is the very first time Marie Joie has ever seen. And the second thing that I just want to bring up is one thing about Drum Island that's always stuck with me. Um, Dalton has a line. I do not remember where in the arc, but I remember the words on the page.
Hmm.
He says to Wapol, "You are the son of the former king to whom I am indebted." And nothing about Wapol's parentage is ever mentioned again.
Oh,
And
wow. That's interesting.
you begin to wonder what was Wapol's father like, that he was respected and his son turned out to not be respectable. What happened there? And that always, that line in the manga makes me shiver a little bit when I read that. It's kind of eerie. It's almost made so by virtue of the fact that that is never discussed.
When you mentioned that, it sort of reminds me of the line where I've only come across it online. I don't know if it's like an actual quote, but the line would be like how tough people make good times and good times make poor people and poor people make bad times and bad times make tough people. You know, that sort
Yeah.
of cyclical nature sort of thing. So that's pretty powerful. But no, like that's that another great astute observation. And I wish I could say that I had helped with another hat trick, but sadly my placement of Drum Island is in B. Just below you guys.
I don't
Um
know. I don't know,
yeah.
Jay. I think we're outnumbering
No,
him, and I think we
no,
should
no,
give
no,
him the
no, no,
B.
no, no, no. I definitely agree that it should go to B because you guys have a 2-to-1 vote here. But like for me, it like what Jay said, like it is very indicative of a baseline for One Piece in regards to the storytelling. The storytelling is very good, and it's sort of average of what you expect to see in One Piece. And at this point, it sort of felt like it was that sort of pattern that was mentioned before, where it's like corrupt governments and essentially Luffy and the gang having to overthrow it for the sake of the people, and the heartfelt stories that come with it, especially with Chopper and his doctor friend. And I would say like an observation that I have now from watching somebody's honest reaction to it. It was funny. It was this video that I came across on YouTube where this Tio, right, like the Spanish uncle, was basically being shown like these different One Piece crewmates, and he was supposed to guess their job, and they had Tony up there, and they told him that he was a ship's doctor, and his question, it's so funny because now that I'm in the medical field, it's like, damn, I should have thought of that first. Was his question was, where did he go to get where did he get his education, where did he pass his boards, like what test did he take to become a doctor? And I'm just like, yeah, he just had residency, he never really passed any test. Like his mentor ended up passing before that happened. But no, so like as we said before, you guys definitely outnumber me 2-1 on the B plus. So B plus Drum Island will stay. Um Now let's figure out the placement for Jaya. Now, Jay, where did you place Jaya?
Okay, so maybe this is my first controversial placement, but I put Jaya in C. There is
Ooh.
again, giving short reasons. It's just like I remember Jaya for just the Blackbeard One Piece or One Piece Blackbeard Luffy moments,
Mm-hmm.
and the usage of the they pronoun has always intrigued me, in which again has probably not been answered. Again, I don't know if it's been like um, clarified in the manga or even what's going on with Egghead right now. But I always found the intrigue of that usage because everything, especially when it came to the translation and the subtitling of One Piece, that it was very intentional, that there was no mistranslations done, even in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of what is common between Japanese and English. And but that usage of that pronoun always stuck in my mind and still sticks in my mind. So just on the mystery basis, and I guess the strength of the other arcs, that's what keeps Jaya memorable, but nothing else.
Okay, that's I would say you mentioned the use of the they pronoun and the mystery behind it. I'm not entirely familiar with what you're referring to. Are you saying that they use the they pronoun and it's yet to be revealed who the they was that they were referring to?
So maybe Jack can talk about how it's represented in the manga, but as Luffy and Zoro are walking away from Blackbeard after having his whole men are defined by their dreams, like kind of monologue, they say something akin to, oh man, I wish I wrote down the specific wording, but it's like, um, uh, Nami asks Zoro, like, who was that? And Zoro answers, they must be someone or something like that. Like Zoro refers to Blackbeard as a they. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
very
Yeah,
interesting
my
because, yeah, tell me, Jack.
well, I was just gonna say my recollection. I may be remembering the Funimation dub version of this, or this could be what is on the page. I don't exactly recall, but
Mhm.
that's pretty much what happens. Nami goes, "Who was that guy?" Or she like refers to him obviously in the singular, talking about Blackbeard,
Mm-hmm.
and then Luffy and Zoro very quickly dispense with the thought and move on, and Zoro is the one who says it was probably them.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's it. That's it.
interestingly enough, do you guys recall what is the Jolly Roger of Blackbeard?
It's three skulls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. So it's like one of those great mysteries that just feels like such a casual drop, but is so highly specific. Again, like one of those things that I love about One Piece, especially when I talk about
Hmm.
Alabasta, which I didn't mention. I just say Crocodile's one of my favorite characters, but like that's the introduction of like the Void Century and the Poneglyphs, which is what has always kept me interested in One Piece.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's like the usage of that pronoun always caught me off guard. So
Okay. So then that's very interesting with what talking about foreshadowing, because like we have the three skulls there, and it just makes me think of the power set that Blackbeard earns later on in the series. So it's like making me think like whether or not he's going to get a third, or if they're even related. But that's very very interesting. But even though, like you said, like of well, like you said, it seems like that was like the most outstanding thing to you. So I can see why it's so low on the list for you, Jay. Jack, do you have any thoughts on that before you say your placement?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think. I mean, this is the Blackbeard was referred to as far back as Drum Island, but this is, of course, the very first time that you lay eyes on the character. And for a character who's going to be so significant later on, it's kind of an introduction that makes you think that he and Luffy are not at odds at all, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know they have the fight about steaks and cherry pies or whatever, but but they tend to agree on a fundamental level about whether or not it's silly to laugh at an improbable dream like going to a sky island. Um, but I will go ahead and say this: I put it as B plus, which should surprise neither of you. But
Ooh, okay. So why is it in B plus?
mainly two reasons. Number one, Bellamy the hyena, and the uh, battle between him and Luffy in Mocktown
Mm-hmm.
toward the end of the arc. I love it, and I love the tragic rematch that they have in Dressrosa later on. But the moment where Luffy
Mm-hmm.
KOs Bellamy with one punch and decides to show them who he is as opposed to talking, um, powerful moment for me. And also because Jaya is the foundation for the Skypiea arc and really is the linchpin for the significance of the Skypiea saga. I mean, there is no Skypiea, which is an arc that I won't spoil it, but it's a big one for me, not so much for others. I hold
Mm-hmm.
Skypiea in higher esteem than I think your average One Piece fan does, and there is no Skypiea without Jaya.
Okay. No, that's very very fair. And I would say, as you said before, with the conflict that Luffy and Bellamy have, it's very, very important. And I would say now that I think about it, it's probably a big reason on where I place it personally. But it's very big, and as you said, like it does have a good foundation for Skypiea. So I would say it's just funny because to me, I had placed Jaya in B plus as well. And I would say a little bit the reason why I placed it so high is partly because of the reason that Jay had mentioned, regards to the dreams and the dreams of others, and with Jaya, like how they just drove it home. I mean, they beat you over the head with it, but for some reason, it's palatable. It's hard for me to put into words. I guess because with Noland and the family legacy and the overall dream that's there, and the with Luffy and Blackbeard talking about dreams, sort of just like reaffirming Luffy's actions and what he wants to do. Granted, like it becomes bigger later on, but like in the moment, it's validating for him, and the conflict with Bellamy it gives Luffy to be closer to the pirate that Shanks was for him, because it essentially is an homage to Romance Dawn, with that conflict that Shanks had with the Mountain Bandit. And essentially, like later on, in this, we see Luffy essentially being that much closer to the pirate that he wants to be by being able to portray actions that Shanks would inevitably do. And the way that they set up the dreams and just hype up Skypiea, it's just very well done, and that's why I have it in B plus. But I know that Jay has it down in C, but we have two people choosing it for B. So, do we believe that Jaya should have the B slot instead, or should it
I'll
be in C
I'll
plus?
stipulate I'll stipulate to B.
Stipulate to B.
I'll
How is
stipulate it to be as well.
okay? So then that's good. It's our first conflict of the evening. It's gone over fairly well. Hopefully, all the other conflicts are done the same. So
Oh,
now
here's the guy.
for one of the more infamous arcs, Long
Hmm.
Ring, Long Land. Jay, we're starting with you. Where did you place this arc and why?
All right, so I'll probably give more time over to Jack to explain, but I mean, if it's higher than where I'm placing it, I'm going to be very shocked. But I'm putting it in the B plus slot or tier because I
Ooh.
think this is like peak One Piece comedy. And again, just remembering it as it was when I first saw it, I remember
Mm-hmm.
like I remember people hating on it, but it is like I think necessary as like this refresher or like breath of fresh air, and the comedy of it is like really peak, especially with the character of Foxy, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like essential to defining One Piece as a comedy adventure, and this is like that peak time.
Okay. No, that's very very astute. Like this arc was very comedic and had very good writing in terms of comedy. And is that the strongest reason why it's in the B plus for you?
Yeah, because if you're looking at like what's baseline One Piece, it's
Mm-hmm.
like essentially the defining arc
Oh,
of
okay. Yeah.
why One Piece is like so comedic, and especially is this where no, sorry, thinking about another in the next arc,
Mm-hmm.
or is this when the Admiral gets introduced as well?
In the manga,
Mm.
not in the anime.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, even yeah, coupling that with his introduction is like yeah, it's good baseline.
Okay. So that's fair. Let's go with Jack. Jack,
Um,
where did you place Long Ring, Long Land, and why?
I I gave it a B. And
Really?
I thought that was me being generous with. Um, I love Long Ring Long Land. I think it's fun. I think it's a break from the emotional intensity of the back end of Skypiea, and it is
Hmm.
a nice, fun, relaxing break before the heaviness of Water 7. But I think also too, it's just fun. I mean, it's a pirate sporting competition, and I think it's good for what it is. I will say I think the manga version of it is better. I think
Hmm.
the anime version adds in a couple of rounds, and in filler, and they don't really, in my opinion, work as well. I think it works best as a 3 round competition, which is what it was in the manga.
Hmm.
And also in the anime, you have a filler arc between Long Ring Long Land, the introduction of Admiral Aokiji. So, nevertheless, the Long Ring Long Land is great. I've heard it described to me as filler One Piece on its own, which is obviously not true, but it feels like it could be filler to a type of One Piece fan. And what's interesting about Long Ring Long Land, see this, it is something of an anomaly in the manga. it does kind of feel like the manga is pressing pause while it does this and not really moving forward into the next big thing. Nevertheless, I think it's good. I think it's entertaining. I like it a lot, and solid B for me.
Nice, that's very, very good. I would say, so would you like to explain a little bit on the pause aspect and how that's necessarily not a negative with it being so high?
I say pause because oh wow, okay, thank you, Jay. Central, or I'm sorry, Sam.
Yes.
I'm,
It's
I'm
okay.
making I'm making editing a chore for you tonight.
It's okay.
Um, yeah, let's just move on.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. So I suppose that with me, I initially I was more of the average One Piece because this was one. If you remember what I had mentioned earlier, this was I had went back and watched two arcs that I had not seen before, and this is one of those arcs. And when I was watching it, very much like what you said, it felt like filler One Piece. But I felt conflicted because it was fun, like what Jay said. The comedy was great, the comedic timing was awesome, and when they talked about the afro, it was just I was talking along the lines with them as it was going on, and I felt chuckled that I was pretty much predicting what was happening. And even though I knew what they were going to say or how they were going to react, it still made me feel good inside. So I'm glad that you had actually mentioned, Jack, that they purposely in the anime made it longer and made it filler. And one of the big reasons why I didn't watch it was because it seemed like it was going to be filler. And for me, like the most important part was the introduction of Aokiji. He's one of my favorite characters. And I was going by, I suppose, the Wikipedia version of the different arcs, and they consider that Aokiji was introduced in another arc, and so I was just mad. He's like, "You mean to tell me that I sat here through like six freaking games just to not find him?" Right? Him being Aokiji, but it was nice. It was fun. It was very light, and I would say another reason why I initially had brought it down so low was because it felt like it was. I mean, it's definitely the predecessor for, say, what happens in Thriller Bark or what happens in Whole Cake, where essentially other pirate crews are actively trying to not necessarily kidnap the Straw Hat pirate members, but essentially separate them and uh, essentially add to their own numbers by taking away what's good for the One Piece crew. And I would say like another positive of it is the dynamic between Zoro and Chopper that we've seen, where essentially at this time Chopper's trying to be more of a man, and when Chopper is being chosen, he's whining like a kid, and Zoro's like, "I thought you were a man. Are you gonna be a man and stick to your words?" And basically helps Chopper grow in that moment. So, um, in light of like what we learned, I will like for my list, I won't put it in the D. I'll probably put it like in the C plus. But you guys both have placed it in the B plus and the B. So I think that it should probably be in the B, but what say you two?
I'm fine
I
with that.
agree. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Baseline.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Also, Sam, I think you should check the chat when you get a second.
okay, let me go ahead. Um, sorry, okay. All right. Yes, I am. My apologies. For some reason, I'm not getting the notifications in the chat, but I am now paying more attention. Now, Water 7. Where did you place it, Jay?
This is like one of those arcs that they go together. So like these are the most complementary arcs. So I think
Hmm.
Water Seven and Innie's Lobby, just to speak to them both, I think they go into S tier.
Okay, so we're considering Water 7 and Eni's Lobby as one arc. Jack, do you want
I
to
mean,
do the
if we don't
same
mind, I
or?
don't think they. I
Yeah.
think they are part one and part two. But again, this is where most people say One Piece gets good, but
Hmm.
it's not. It's just like the culmination of like what you might see as the main crew as after adding in Robin. But I think everything down from the iceberg mystery to the reveal and betrayal of his, crew members, again,
Hmm.
not avoiding any spoilers, and then the Luffy moment of shoot down the flag, and Enies Lobby is just the better Alabasta, or a better version of Alabasta with what Jack mentions, like the brawl, the one-on-ones for all the
Hmm.
One Piece, or when the Straw Hats. So I think it's just like peak One Piece.
Okay. So, Jack, are you okay with us considering Water 7 and Eni's Lobby uh, both one arc? Or did you
Uh,
separate them?
I'm okay with the notion of us putting them in the tier list at the same time.
Okay.
I do agree. I do agree that they are very much a part one, part two. However, I did rank them differently, actually.
Okay.
Wa
So,
Water
yeah.
Water 7 I gave an A, and Enia's Lobby
Okay.
I gave an A plus.
Okay. So then, just to reiterate, because I didn't show this while Jay was giving his explanation. Jay, you said you put them both in S tier?
Yes.
Okay, so they were both in S tier for you.
Mhm.
And Jax has Water 7 A and E's and A plus. Is that how you had yours,
Yes.
Jack?
That's how I've got it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have any difference of opinions with Water 7 E's lobby with what Jay said in his ranking?
Um, I don't. Well, I understand why one would say that Enia's Lobby is the better Alabasta.
Hmm.
And I do know a lot of people say this is. I mean, he's 100% correct. This is where a lot of people say One Piece definitively goes for maturity for the first time.
Hmm.
Water 7, you have the disappearance of one crew member and um the uh what's the term I'm looking for? The ejection of another.
Yes.
Uh in a very tragic way. So Water 7 is the first time that the happy-go-lucky crew is faced with some very, very serious problems to overcome, and Enia's Lobby is the end result. I do like Enia's Lobby slightly more because the crew has moral clarity now. They know what to do.
Okay.
They know who to fight, and they have a mission to fulfill. So that's what I'll offer for those.
All right. No, that's very solid answers. And as you said, different perspective on lights on the events. I would say for me, it's interesting because my same ranking is yours, Jack, but flipped. So for me, I have Water 7 in A plus and Eni's Lobby in A.
That's
And
bold, bold. I like
Heresy.
it. No, I
heresy.
respect it. I respect it. Water 7 is water. Think about Water 7 as Infinity War and Enia's Lobby as Endgame. Okay, Infinity War is
Yeah.
better than Endgame. Let's just be honest.
It is, and I would say it was just because they're both very good, and I'm glad that Jay is making us consider them essentially the same because it's hard to differentiate because they lead so close to each other. I thought they were the same arc to begin with, but just the
Mm.
way that they do Water 7 and the way they introduce the CP organization and just Jack knows this, that spy stuff and things like that, it's just my jam. So seeing that you have essentially like spies from the Marines, like the secret sect that's going in and doing all this stuff, it's just it's just up my alley. And with Eni's Lobby, it's a good payoff, but for me, the build up was still a little bit better in Water 7. And Eni's Lobby, it's very, very good, but for me, Water 7 was still better. But I would say for us in regards to the list, because Jay has it an S, and because Jack and I both have one part in A plus, I say that we put them both in A plus.
Agreed.
As okay,
Agreed.
cool. Any more comments before we move on?
I like Jack's comparison, but
Mm-hmm.
how I was happy that Thanos won in Infinity War, I was not happy that Robin got taken away. So, but other than that, yeah, I do like that comparison.
That's a very, very good. That's
Um,
why we keep him on.
yeah. I'll say just one thing more
Yes.
thing about this. This arc was current in Japan
Mm-hmm.
in the anime at the time I was introduced to this franchise.
Hmm.
And at the time I was aware of this franchise, Volume 38, which is kind of the tail end of Water 7, had just come
Mm-hmm.
out in Japan. And so for everybody that participated in One Piece message boards and forums and chats and things like that in the mid to late 2006 or 7, I mean, One Piece was this. This was the latest part of One Piece, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a very exciting time to discover this thing and get into it. Even though you couldn't watch it in English, you couldn't read it in English, you had to you had to really work hard to get your get your scanlations and get your subs and whatnot, your subtitled fan made productions for One Piece. But just a bit of I have fondness for the nostalgia of this saga as well too. So
Okay. Awesome. So now, post Eni's Lobby, I'll definitely like to hear Jay's opinion on this
Okay.
arc.
This might okay, so because this might be wild since I put Indy's Lobby and Water 7 in S, but post Indy's Lobby is a C for me. And
Ooh.
again, it does like again what I think what makes the arc so powerful and what I maybe judge them by is how much they the heavy weight that they carry. And other than introducing like Luffy's lineage with Dragon and his grandpa, which the live action did a little bit earlier,
Mm-hmm.
which again is one of the strengths of the live action. Post Indies Lobby is the reintroduction of Kobe and like his glow up and some introductions of the Yonkos and the world government, like how powerful like Luffy's family is in terms of like their influence collectively. So I think that does that well, but other than that, compared to the other arcs, it's just a standard One Piece below the baseline, essentially.
Okay. No, that's fair. Like you said, it's nothing that really makes it stands out, but it essentially continues to world build. So, like you said, very very standard. Jack, what about you?
I believe I gave this one a B.
Ooh, okay, that's pretty high. Why is
Um,
that?
well, mainly because of the revelations and the trajectory that it sets the course for the crew on. That it's mainly just the revelations. I mean, you learn about Luffy's lineage, like Jay mentioned. You also learn that
Hmm.
their next destination is this mysterious place called the New World, that
Hmm.
has full populations of people in it and kingdoms and whatnot that everybody knows. But it's the New World, and it really does sort of set up that they go to Fishman Island, which is ironic because they will not get there for years. So I like the way that it kind of relaunches everybody, and of course it does feature the definitive return of Usopp, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, reestablishment of a crew member that we've saw that was kicked off before at a very emotional time, and having him come back into the fold, as well as sort of having everybody reset their pace is very, very good. I would say for me, I chose the same as Jay, putting post Eni's lobby at C, where it felt like it was sort of standard One Piece, nothing really standing out too much. It was pretty interesting meeting Garp. However, I felt like it was a little bit late. Agreeing with Jay that how the live action introducing him a little bit early on was probably a good strength. I probably wouldn't have introduced him that early, but it still worked. So that's a little bit of why I would put post Eni's lobby in C, even though it was good, but still there were
We can
better.
we can
Sorry,
leave it there. We can. I'm
you
not gonna
sure?
do that. We,
Because
yeah,
you
we
had
can
it
leave
in
it
B,
there.
we
That's
can
fine.
put it in C plus.
That's up to
But
you guys. I'm fine leaving it and see, especially if both of you put it in the same slot.
what say you, Jay? That B is
Yes,
not
it can be
moving you?
left in the same place.
Okay. So we have our first C on the board. That's pretty interesting. We'll see where everything else goes. Now, on to Thriller Bark. Jay, where did you place this on your tier list?
Given that I is this is very recent in my memory, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna put it in the A plus slot.
Ooh, A plus.
hmm And I guess the short reason of I think Nightmare Luffy is peak, and we have the introduction of Brook as the next crew member,
Mhm.
and this is again one of those moments I think maybe Jack really keys into, but the members in the group working together. So
Okay. No, like you said, very good culmination. Seeing more teamwork from the pirate crew, very very good, and especially the addition of Brooke. Um, Jack, where did you place Thriller Bark on your tier list?
Okay, so I put it at C plus.
Whoa!
All right, are you ready for this? You ready for my explanation? Here you go. So Jay talked about Nightmare Luffy. Jay talked about the teamwork of the crew. Jay talked
hmm
about the excellent introduction and the excellent character that is Brook, the humming swordsman himself.
hmm
There is also everything else about Thriller Bark, and
Everything
that is
else.
why it is C plus for me.
Oh, so what do you mean by everything else? Just like
I mean that I wasn't a fan of Hot Topic.
you skipped that store in the mall. You
Yeah.
did you didn't like to join the dark side.
No, and I think in a large respect, Thriller Bark is it tries to be scary and funny all at the same time. I
hmm
think it's just some of it is just painful. Absalom and his pervy power is painful. The fight with
Yeah.
Sanji, where you reveal that all of a sudden Sanji had every intention of eating a devil fruit so he could peep on ladies, is a step toward I would call disrespect to his character and a step backward from the
Mm.
chivalry that he is characterized as having. But I will stop it there. The less said about Thriller Bart, the better.
Okay. Very very strong opinions on
wow,
Thriller Bark.
I'm sorry. I'll let you
Jay, would you
continue
like to
there, but
rebuttal?
no, you say your placement, and we'll get to the rebuttal later.
Okay. So my placement is in B plus. I mentioned earlier it's essentially the better version of Long Ring, Long Land, and the crew. I would say like for me the fact that we run into another Shibukai who essentially is able to what's the word, make the cohesiveness of the Straw Hats in the sense of them being able to stay together and continue forward. essentially put that in jeopardy. Taking the best parts of the crew, which they're Saros in this case, and like adding it to his own, so that he can make his own ambitions. Essentially, trying to feed off of them to grow his own power, and how the crew had to overcome that. And I would say, like with this, it's sort of indicative of what happens in Sabaody archipelago, where you can tell that like as time is going on, like the what's the face? I'm sorry, not the phrase. The like the pace of the crew is like almost like every antagonist up to this point. It seemed like they were able to keep pushing, but for me, it felt like you can feel it slowing down where around this point where they can't keep pushing. Where at a point they'll have to stop. But that's enough about that. So now we can delegate and debate on where it should go because we have somebody who has it in A plus, somebody who has it at C plus, and somebody who's in the middle. So
I do want to make one concession because I
mhm,
did neglect to mention this, and Jay, I don't think you brought it up. Everything that Bartholomew Kuma does and says in this
mhm.
arc is brilliant, and I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
Thank you. I was about to bring him
Yeah,
up because his
I
introduction
do want to make that
is
Yes.
concession. Yeah, yeah.
okay, good. Because his introduction is as hardcore as Mihawk's introduction. It's like
Yes.
him just sitting with his book and his snail, just like
Kicking
the
Zoro's ass.
menace. Yeah, and then nothing happens again. Maybe to talk about its parallel to Sanji's moment in Skypiea, which will come up on later on. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think a good concession is to put it in B plus, if you don't mind.
I will stipulate to that. That's fair.
Okay. So no blood was drawn, even though words were said. That is good. Oh my goodness. Let's see if we can keep the good times rolling. So, I didn't really think that this was going to be the next one. So, but Sabo the Archipelago. Jay, where did you
Okay.
place this on your list?
Yeah, I've heard this pronounced a few ways. Yeah, I've
Okay.
always heard it pronounced Sabaody, but I also have heard it Saabadi. So I was interested in. Do you
Saw a
know how
baddie.
to how to pronounce it, Jack?
I heard it pronounced Shabandi,
Okay,
so
that's
Ooh.
what
that's
I
no
thought.
help.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I put this in A tier. So
Okay.
just to keep it brief, I
Hmm.
think Sabaody is like the and versus reflection of Return to Sabaody is that Sabaody does what the same thing I like in Drum Island. It
Hmm.
introduces Charlos, or it shows off Charlos and the cruelty of the world government and the celestial dragons
Yeah.
perfectly. And again, it's one of those moments of Luffy just needs to punch some people in the face. I think that's what Jack said.
Yes.
But yeah, and it's just like one of those perfect moments of what is really at stake in the One Piece world. So I think
Hmm.
it's just a good example of that.
Okay. So, very, very good. Like you said, like it harkens back to the celestial dragons and how a big bag of dicks they are, and as you said, gives a little bit more light in the world as a whole, and how people's rights can be up for grabs. Jack, where did you place Shabondi, Sabaody, or Saabadi on your list?
Uh, Also in A tier.
Oh, okay. Are your reasons the same as Jay's?
No. I love Sabaudi. I love it because the ending is one that you don't see coming and is not set
Hmm.
up remotely by the start of the arc. Start of the arc, we're going to Fishman Island. We got to get coded. We got to dodge the Marines. We got to dodge the other members of the worst generation that are also here on the island. We got to dodge the world nobles. We got to dodge the human traffickers. We got to dodge the other weirdos and randos that are on the island, people that are trying to scam us out of our cotton candy money. Okay, we got to do all those different things, and at the end of the arc, everyone is gone. Sabaody is to One Piece as the Clone Wars and the Jedi in Revenge of the Sith are. Sabaody is the Order 66 of Star Wars. of One Piece rather.
Oh, that's a good analogy. You were just killing it with the analogies today, man.
Sabaudi's ending is more traumatizing to me than any other part of the One Piece story, including the death of Ace.
Ooh, no, that's some big talk right there.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say, oh, I don't know what I was doing when I was making this list because now, like, being reminded that the worst generation was being introduced here and
Just
how
tell
they were
us where
good.
you put it. It doesn't
Right
matter what we
here,
said before. Okay.
that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Boo, hiss, boo. I'm okay with it being an A. Is everybody
Okay.
okay with that?
Perfect.
All right,
Yeah,
Yes.
cool.
Perfect.
Next
it is
one,
acceptable.
Romance Dawn.
All right. So again, maybe not controversial for where I placed it,
hmm
but this is a case of the division between plus and the baseline again. So I think it's the perfect baseline. So if we were going to put something in the slot, if we were ranking them
hmm
individually, I would say this is the first spot in B plus.
hmm
So it's the perfect introduction to Luffy, to Shanks, the relationships, the early introduction of the concept of hockey, Zoro's introduction. It's just like it just serves as like the perfect baseline. When I said people think One Piece gets good, it was never not good because of Romance Dawn. It's just perfect, right? It's not perfect, but it's serves as the perfect vertical slice. I think someone said that
hmm
before, a very
Ooh,
popular expression. But yeah, the vertical slice of themes, motifs, characters in the story. So it serves as like the perfect introduction. So that's where I place it.
awesome. Jack, do you agree or disagree?
I can see Jay's point. I get it.
hmm
I put it at A plus tier though.
Okay.
Um, I love everything about red-haired Shanks. I really hope to God that there is not another shoe about to drop on that character. But, um, and this is one of those areas where I do want the difference between the anime and the manga. Now, the events of Romance Dawn play out in chapter 1 through I think about 4. Romance Dawn I think
hmm
includes does Romance Dawn include the Shell Town? I think it does on this tier list. Um, but focusing specifically on chapter 1, in the One Piece anime, episode 4 gives us a very truncated version of the events of chapter 1 of the manga. Now, the East Blue movie that we reviewed call it detail, but the best way to experience the beginning of One Piece is to read chapter 1, period.
hmm
And that's
And
my
that's your reason? Okay. So, very strong reasoning. Harkening back to what Jay had said. And for me, I had placed Romance Dawn at A lot for the same reasons that you guys gave. Good jumping off point, good storytelling, introduction of characters, and everything else. So, um, where should this guy belong? Because we're all in different slots here.
You want to just say A or
Go middle of the road. Jay, what say
I
you?
agree with that. Yeah, A is pretty good.
All right. So that is very good with that. Now, ooh, I think we had mentioned I think no, Jay, I think you mentioned Amazon Lily before, didn't you? And wanting to talk a little
Yeah,
bit about
yeah,
it?
yeah. So that
Okay.
is the transitional arc that I talked about
Yes.
earlier. So place that at B plus,
Okay.
and again as a self-contained adventure before the bad stuff happens. It works. Again, the idea of refresher arcs, same as Long Ring Island. It works in
hmm
the same function, but you get a lot more of the endearing characters like Boa Hancock versus Foxy. So I put that a lot higher for that regard. So it's a solid B plus baseline.
Okay. Like you said, good refresher course. Jack, were you in the same spot? Different place on the tier list?
C plus?
C plus. Okay. Do. Why?
I'm still grieving the loss of the crew, and you gotta wait till the end of the arc to find out what happened to everybody. And also, Boa
Mm,
Hancock kicks a damn puppy.
that's right.
Um,
She was a bit of a witch.
yeah, the whole little bit the lore aspect and the connection of the characters to the lore is interesting, but most everything else, I'm just like, oh man, everybody's gone. Luffy is helpless and hopeless right now, and it felt like almost like a diversion. Obviously, it does lead
Hmm.
into the events that follow it, which are very, very, very significant and important. But for me personally, whenever I think about this arc or go through this arc, I'm always like, oh no, gotta,
They're like, soothe my wounds. Stop making me try
yeah,
to care about these people that I don't care about.
where's my crew? Yeah,
So for me, like Jay, I was in B plus, mainly because of the story and the lore that Bora Hancock and them had really in terms with the Celestial Dragons. Because what we had with Shabondi, they just sort of like drove that home in how they affect some of the other characters, and I do agree with you guys in that it was a good refresher, but like you're still riling from the crew being missing. So, C plus, we have two B pluses. Do we keep it in the B plus or do we go down to B, J?
It's not in the same class. Given what you guys just said, I
Mm-hmm.
would move it down to the B because I don't think it's in the same class as Thriller Bark.
Okay, that's fair. Tony beats out Boa Hancock. That's that's hilarious.
yeah, that's fine.
All right, Impel down. Jay, where'd you place this on the
Mhm.
list?
Again, fresh in my memory, I'm going to put it right next to Thriller Bark. And oh, actually, wait, does it deserve to be? Sorry, I don't think it deserves. It's on my list higher. It's in the A plus tier for me
Ooh.
because I was like thinking like this was my list, but it's our list. So right now it's in that tier for me right now. And
Mm-hmm.
again, the whole Dante's
Dante's
Circle,
Infernal, yeah.
Inferno, Escape Prison, Magellan, and who's the other dude with Magellan?
Oh, with the
Um,
Egyptian looking car.
Hannibal.
yeah, Hannibal
Hannibal.
is like a good villain pair. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing as where like Crocodile and Nico Robin were previously. I think they're dual villainry is
Villainy.
very like very comedic. So I do like everything in that, especially as a preamble to the following arc. So A plus.
Okay. Jack, where did you place it?
Not far below. I got it at the B plus. I really like Impel
Ooh.
Down. I don't know that I would like. I don't know that I necessarily like it that much. And this is one of those areas where I think I may have allowed my view of the arcs to be affected in my rankings as they relate to
Mm-hmm.
one another. Like I think about the
Okay.
things that I put in the S and S plus and A tiers, and Impel Down just ain't there in my view. However, it's really, really great. My favorite thing about Impel Down is the reintroduction of the Bronze agents. And those of us who read the manga know as far back as Enies Lobby that the Impel Down is exactly where all of those characters were. And I will never
Mm-hmm.
forget in 2009 when those chapters were coming out weekly, being like, they're going to Impel Down. That's where Crocodile, Mr. 1, 2, and 3 are. Are we going to see them? And sure enough, we do. And their return is glorious of all of them. The introduction of the Ivankov character was handled really well. I appreciate the fact that the arc is doom and gloom, but it does still have a ray of hope about it, and the breakout is great. I think it's great. I just don't think that it's above a B plus, but I do have a lot of love for it.
No, like that very very good points. Like you said, like it's one of those things where uh in One Piece the world building has become so big I can see like where you would be sort of skeptical. Is like, okay, that's where they were sent. Are we even going to see them? Right? Are they going to be brought back? And the fact that they did, and they became very what's the phrase? Very or they were like not tantamount, but like they were a very important driving force for the entirety after their introduction. It really does show that Oda cared for the readers and knows that these were characters that they were invested in, and he gave them a due credit in having them come back. And now, for me, looking back, I had initially put Impel Down at C, but listening to you and Jay talk about it, it reminds me so much of all the stuff that went on, especially just now, like thinking about like how Luffy essentially like broke in trying to get Ace out. He ended up getting captured, and he's trying to break out. And at the same time, we see Teach. This is our another time that we see him, especially like after what happened with Ace, and he's breaking into prison as Luffy's trying to break out. And they have that sort of last confrontation um, before what some could say is like the final showdown, and Luffy is essentially stopped from pre from prematurely beginning that fight. So I don't think my C rank proves it justice. I probably would have thrown it in the B category. But I'm trying to remember. Jay, do you remember Jay's ranking for Impel Down?
I
Jack?
thought Jay put it A plus.
A plus. Okay. And you said that you had placed it in the B plus.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I think that because Jay had it in the A plus. Now I'm just like comparing it to like how Jay's comparing it. Do you think that it should be in the A, or should it just stick to the B plus? Because I think now I think about it, I think B plus should be a good summation of all our ranks there.
I mean that makes sense to me, but then again, I'm biased. I picked C.
True, true, true. Jay,
Yes, that's acceptable.
it's acceptable. All right.
Yes.
So now on to Marineford.
I mean, surprise, surprise, it's a S plus. um, yeah, again, not anything that needs to be stated about it. And
Mhm.
again, it's one of those foregone conclusions, I believe. That's the best arc. Like if you were saying which is the best arc of it, it's this one. And if you're going to say like, oh, I was thinking about this on the way in, it's like, would I prefer this or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood? I prefer this.
That's
S
saying a
plus, S
lot.
plus, S plus.
Oh, you're throwing in the S
Um,
plus. Ooh.
yeah, it's the best arc. Yeah, the best arc. So if we're looking at bell curves, this is the top of, or not the top of the bell curve, but the bottom top, whatever left of the bell curve. So yes.
Jay says there is no other answer for Marineford. Jack, do you concur or do you disagree?
Guess.
Oh, you want me to guess?
Guess what I'm about to say.
Oh no, I feel like you're just going to make this man irate. Let's
Maybe
say.
check the chat. Anyway, for Marineford, certainly an epic arc. I put it at A tier.
Okay.
Um, I will say this. Marineford, in my opinion, is overrated, and the reason it is overrated is because it is populated with a lot of people's favorite characters, duking it out in
hmm
poorly defined battle plans, poorly defined arenas of fighting. I will say this: uh, the characters involved are cool, but the back and forth in the battle is poorly defined. It drags out. In the case of the anime is even worse with this. The anime version of Marineford, which I have seen, is poor in my view. The manga itself makes things drag out, and it's it is only considered epic because of the cast of characters involved, and not really so much about what they do. With the exception of maybe somebody like Luffy, who struggles against all odds to save Ace, and then succeeds, and then doesn't. So at the same time, everything that I will concede about Marineford is my reason for putting it in the A tier.
Oh my goodness. Um, I that's actually kind of fair. Um, so for me and my ranking, I actually have it in the A tier. For me on my personal list, I don't have anything going above A plus, so this was fairly high on my list. And thinking back on what Jack said, it does seem like, as far as like the Marines planning things, it seemed like everything was rushed. There was no real plan, and to me, it felt like that was the point because they just wanted to get it over with before Whitebeard showed up. And surprise, surprise, he does. And they didn't really have any battle plan after that. So now, Jay, do you have? I'm sure you have some strong words. So, what would be a good consensus for you, seeing as how you have Marineford at the perfect arc?
Oh, I don't think it's perfect by any means. Again, everything that
Mm-hmm.
Jack brought up is valid. I just think of the alternative name of Marineford is uh, Summit Arc or Summit War.
Yeah.
Summit War.
The Paramount War,
Paramount
yeah.
War.
Paramount, yeah. And I think the point of war is that it's chaotic,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what it sells you on. It's like, okay, let's throw all these characters into a mixing bowl and blend it all up.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens. And I guess that's the whole collateral damage of that island getting destroyed and the
Mm-hmm.
casualties and everything that falls out from it. It's not a structured battle tournament or a paragraph, not paragraph, bracket 1v1 or group v group. It's just chaos incarnate. So I don't see that as too much of a negative. So I am willing to concede that it's definitely A plus, but any
Okay.
lower than that
I'd
feels
I'd
disrespectful.
I'd be
What do you think?
not obviously we got to hear what Sam has to say, but I'd be willing to stipulate to A plus. I'll tell you that.
I agree with the A plus. Much like what Jay said, like war can be chaotic, and I felt like when we did watch Marineford, it very much like what Jack said. It seemed like nobody had any battle plan, but I felt like that was sort of the point where everybody was trying to act as fast as they could, preemptively, and things just happened at the wayside. So I felt like that was good for it, and especially with all the emotional stuff that happened all throughout. So that is Marineford. Now, post war. Jay, where do you place it?
Yeah, this is one of those, again, interesting cases where Innie's Lobby and Water 7 do serve as a part one, part two, or Infinity
Mm-hmm.
War and Endgame, as Jack has said. But I don't think post war is as effective as a arc as a or it's an epilogue more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely ranking somewhere around the you know what? Actually, it does serve as a you know what? Now thinking about it out loud, it does serve as a part
Part
two
two for
or epilogue
Marineford.
to Marine Ford. Yeah, so
You're gonna
it
place
was
it in
originally an S plus then, so
S
it was
plus.
with my it was with my Marine Ford. So yeah, that's where it
Okay,
would go for me.
nice. So, like you said, it's a very good bookend to the Marineford. So, Jack, where did you place post war?
D plus.
B plus. Reasons.
No, D plus. D plus.
D plus. Oh, oof.
All
Reasons.
right. Um, to me, it doesn't feel like a second part of Marineford. It feels like a breaking point where we go back and redefine our main character, and in a way that I find frankly frustrating. One of the things that I will admit to finding frustrating when it comes to One Piece is that your main character, who you are familiar with for over 500, almost 600 chapters at this point, all of a sudden has this whole other backstory that you don't know anything about. You don't really know how he came to be with
Yeah.
Ace. You don't know how he became the brothers' cups and whatnot. You don't know anything about Sabo until Ace dies. That's the first time you hear Sabo's name. You don't know anything about the other mountain bandits. You don't know anything about the connection between Luffy and the Celestial Dragons until there's some implied animosity and Sabaody. None of that is explained until the end of the first half of the story, and I have a huge problem with that narratively. I think that this is the kind of information that should have been, if it was going to be included in the main character story, should have happened sooner.
Mm-hmm.
It I I also don't like the way Luffy is drawn as he is grieving, and that is probably going to be a seriously blasphemous comment to some One Piece fans. But I do not like the way Oda draws Luffy as he is grieving over his brother. He looks unintentionally goofy, and it takes me out of the seriousness of his grief. The
Mm.
best thing about that arc is when the 3-day, 2-year plan comes, and that's all I've got to say about it.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting, very strong. It will be interesting to see Jay's rebuttal from that. And I say my pick is not that far off because I had it at a C plus. But thinking back on it, it seems like post-war did for Luffy and the events of Marineford what you were looking for, Jack, and Amazon Lily in the initial separation, where you have Luffy grieving when you're supposed to be grieving as well,
What
and
one what
yeah,
one thing, and I'm not sorry.
yes,
I
yeah, go ahead,
apologize
that's
for,
fine,
for interrupting this, but just one last little metaphor that I want to get in here.
okay,
Uh, Luffy's flashback and his grief and everything that is a part of this arc. I know it's not the entirety of this
mm-hmm,
arc, but it's a significant portion of it. To me, this is season 7, episode 1 of The Walking Dead. This is Rick Grimes grieving over the death of two of his friends,
mm-hmm,
and it is taken to such an extreme that it stops you from breaking down and gets you thinking that this is kind of gone, maybe jump the shark a little bit. That's
okay,
just that's the last thing I wanted to enter in there. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Walking Dead, but I'm a huge fan of that show, and this is what it makes me think
mm-hmm.
of.
Whereas like it's sort of overkill where it they play on the grief to where it becomes overly dramatic, so to speak. Okay, I could see that. But I feel Jay may be biting at the bit a little bit. So Jay, what do you have to say about our blasphemous placement?
No, again, I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because, like, I think, well, not to say that you're confusing me with a One Piece fan, but
Yeah.
everything Jack says is correct. It is a misplaced backstory. It's not well
Mm-hmm.
written. And again, I'm not so privy to how Oda has drawn him in the actual story when it's
Mm-hmm.
animated because he seems fine. It doesn't translate over to the actual animation of it, but it is a story out of place
Yeah.
because it does seem like something that should have come up in Alabasta, specifically when Ace gets introduced,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have maybe served as a better introduction to that backstory. But as the validity of it changing his character or misrepresenting the character that you have of that character of Luffy up to the point is like, I don't know. I think it is in the case of developing Luffy in a more depth than what has been up to this point very surface level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is misplaced, but I just don't think it's a rewriting or a destruction of his character in any meaningful way. So I'm definitely, I mean, again, for our final ranking, I do
Yeah.
think it's
not paired so well with Marineford, so I
Yeah.
would definitely put it in the A category
Okay.
because it kind of serves as the same foundation as Romance Dawn.
Jack, do you concede or?
I will concede to that for one reason.
Hmm.
The two-page spread of Luffy saying to Jinbei that I have my crew, and the way that that two-page spread is drawn, that gets me every time.
Okay.
Gets me every time.
I would say that too, like that sort of refocus on the crew.
Yeah.
Um, so I will also concede to it being an A. Now, on to the return to Shabadi. Jay, where did you place this on your list?
This is a solid C plus. Again, self-contained, very
Mm-hmm.
short, 5 chapters, complete story, good transitional or a just standalone moment to show off the effects or the standings of the crew as they are post time skip.
Yep.
So it is a standard again. Looking at B as baseline, I think it serves it does what it does, and it gets out really quickly and doesn't do anything extraordinarily well to make it stand out to me. But C plus.
Okay, that's very fair. Jack, where do you place return?
The exact same spot, C plus.
Oh, why did you place it in C
Yep.
plus?
Mainly out of protest because I don't really consider it much an art. Let me just be very clear. It is a delightful few chapters,
Mm-hmm.
but it is so few chapters that I hesitate to even really want to call it an arc. I mean, maybe the anime made it a little bit longer, but for what it is a delight. I love the idea that the Straw Hats look differently. I will never
Mm-hmm.
forget in October of 2010 waiting on these chapters to come out and seeing the leaked images from the raw scans from the actual Weekly Shonen Jump and everybody making the connection. Oh, we see Sanji's other eye.
I was like, what?
Um,
We finally see
yeah,
it.
I love that there are Straw Hat impersonators, and I love the
Mm-hmm.
confusion and the hijinks and the fact that it's very clear very quickly that the crew has grown, they've trained, they've gotten stronger. So for what it is, it's a delight. I just, in relation to everything else, C plus is what I'll give it.
Nice. But like you said, even though it's short, it's sweet. And this is our second hat trick of the night, gentlemen. Cause I too have it in C plus. I guess we
All right.
it's just super baseline that we're just all in agreement. That's awesome. That's great. Now, Fishman Island. Jay, what say you?
Controversy potentially, but
Mm.
and maybe I don't know.
No.
Sorry, it's just
No.
going to look very, very funny, very interesting in a moment when Jack
Mm-hmm.
says his placement. But I'm putting this in B.
Oh, why is
This
it in B?
is a exposition dump
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways. A good setup. Again, the execution of what is good baseline storytelling for it, and the setting is very unique. Again, what is one of the appeals of the world building and the different islands and their different cultures and everything is like aesthetically pleasing. The design I like, and uh, the whole not Sea Kings. Is it Sea Kings?
The
Um,
giant sea monsters?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sea kings.
Sea Kings in the Japanese, Neptunians in the Viz manga.
Right, yeah, yeah. That moment when they surround the Noah is legitimately terrifying. So again, looking at baseline One Piece, this is that.
Okay, that's fair. Like you said, new island, new scenery, new threats. Jack, where did you place Fishman?
B plus.
B plus. Okay, why so high?
Um, I like it more. This is the arc that I mentioned earlier that has
Mm-hmm.
that I've grown to appreciate more as I've gotten older. Um, I think that it walks a very careful line in essentially tackling a racism allegory. And
Mm.
it is, in my view, very tastefully and carefully done. Everything about the backstory of Fisher Tiger and the origin of the Sun Pirates. Um, I think it's an arc with an oddly uh, timely message about the dangers and horror of bigotry and how it connects generations and has a vicious cycle to it, and that um, how it affects people
Mm-hmm.
as characters and human beings. I think the portion of the flashback involving Shirahoshi's mother, I think, expresses this a lot. Um, and I just, it hits me more and more the reaction of individual characters living on Fishman Island that are saying things like, "Look, the humans up there are vicious. Why are we expected to try and make peace and live with these people?" It's this. It reminds me a lot of the differences of opinion between Malcolm X and Jr.
Mm-hmm.
On integration. Um, but aside from that, I will say this: the arc is not perfect. Sanji's stupid nosebleeds in the beginning pissed me off.
How it
I didn't like
became an
that.
actual plot point.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I understand the significance of saying, "Somebody please give him blood," and everybody says, "No,
Mm-hmm.
that's a human." Um, I get the significance of that. I just wish that Sanji's stupid nose bleeds at having seeing real women as was the catalyst for this pivot to a very serious thing that says, "Look, we are
Mm-hmm.
not going to help. We're not going to help him. He's an outsider." And I mean that's a very the arc has very serious themes to it. I'm more impressed by it in recently than I was in the beginning. I don't really know why it didn't mesh with me in the beginning. I think it's because the introduction of so many new Fishmen characters that all look radically different from the way Arlong and his people looked.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's my. I know I probably droned on too long about, it, but those are my.
No, it was a good explanation. I would say, like for me, initially I had it in C plus, but I completely forgot about the racism parallel that you had made, uh, and with the different characters. So I would say it belongs in B, along with that, and along with how capable the Straw Hat Pirates had shown themselves to be, especially some of the weaker characters. For instance, Usopp had a moment where he literally saved the crew, and Zoro gave him a nod of approval, which he never did before. So it's a testament to him becoming a brave warrior of the sea that he always wanted to be. So that's why I would change my ranking from the C plus to the B right there. And now you two, Jack putting it in B plus and Jay putting it in B. Do you guys feel okay with it being in B? Do you feel like it needs to be in B plus? What say you two?
B is fine.
All right, Jack, you okay with it being B?
Yeah, sure.
All right, now Punk Hazard. Jay, where does this guy belong?
This is in the A for me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the cases of, again, the needing to punch someone in the face, essentially, with Caesar Clown, who is the perfect upgrade to Walpole as a
Really?
character.
Okay.
And again, a villain that again excels at sadistic
Mm-hmm.
sadism essentially, and how far does the perversion of authority go in the setting here? So the setting's cool again the whole split island with
Mm-hmm.
ice and fire essentially, and when that connects to why that is or why that island exists is very a good twist and a good revelation. So just on the basis of or the strength of its villain and some of the like antics that happen with Smoker and Law, and even the Yeti brothers. I do like a lot of the side action of the story are all like complementary together. So besides that, I think it's a solid, again, another baseline.
Okay. Yeah, good baseline. Emphasizes on a lot of the things that you like about it.
Oh, sorry, above
Yeah,
baseline.
above
It's because I put
baseline.
in A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jack, do you feel like Punk Hazard's above baseline?
No, C plus.
Ooh, why?
Um, First of all, there are a number of good things about the arc. I like
Mm-hmm.
seeing Smoker again. I feel like Smoker is misused. Um, Not misused, underused.
Mm-hmm.
And so is Tashigi. The thing about the hearts flipping bodies and the characters is nice, but as I'm reading this, I just keep hoping that they will go back to who they belong to because it's just weird. Um, and Caesar Clown is a pathetic villain. He's a poor man's Magellan. And and and
Discount
and and
Magellan.
And lest you be tempted, or anyone listening be tempted to disagree, there is a joke made at Caesar Clown's expense that he does not have Magellan's powers, and his reaction to that joke is obviously that he takes that personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's akin to Buggy the Clown having somebody making fun of his nose. Caesar Clown knows Magellan is stronger than him and cooler than him, and so he's pissed about it.
It's like Caesar knows this fact. He just doesn't want to agree with it. All right, no, no.
Magellan eating Taco Bell is Caesar Clown's power. Okay.
All right, that's fair enough. I would say for me, I had placed Punk Hazard at B plus, mainly because of like what Jay had said. We get to see some of the supernovas exercising their force. Trafalgar's now a warlord of the sea, and he's able to do what he wants to. And not only that, but we also get to see a glimpse of what would be a black market. And I would say like the intrigue and the mystery of that was very, very well done. And I wanted to see more of that and how they set it up. And with Caesar doing those experiment on the kids and showing that he had ties with another warlord, it was just very, very good setup for what was to come. Now, so since Jay had it an A, I have it at B plus, and Jack had it at a C plus. Where do you guys think that Punk Hazard should go? Jack, do you have any preference?
Probably right there where you had it. I mean, is it? I don't know.
B
Jay,
plus?
did you have it at Jay? Did you have it at A or A plus? I forget.
He had it
I
A.
have it at A.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine. I'm fine with it at B plus. I will say this about Punk Hazard:
Mm-hmm.
rereading it not too long ago, uh, did improve my view of it overall.
Okay. So that's pretty good. Jay, you're okay with it being at B plus?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
All right. Now, Dressrosa.
All
Where does this
right.
guy belong, Jay?
All
We have
right.
another S tier?
No. It's just I'm just finding it funny the differences between me and Jack. So I'm going to put it at A plus.
A plus.
And yeah, and again, this is I should have saved my comment earlier for this, but this
Mm-hmm.
is the better Alabasta. Again, you have the same uh, one-on-one for the
Mm-hmm.
Straw Hats. You have the introduction of the Doflamingo family, or well, the fleshing out of that family's dynamics as well as the villain. And I've, I really enjoy the setup that this is the worst case scenario if Arlong Park kept,
Mm.
kept
It kept going.
it's essentially yes, yeah, because Arlong Park was just people taking advantage, a gang taking advantage of a very small town. This
Mm-hmm.
is what happens when that same ideology extends to a country, essentially, and then how does that control? How do you maintain control outside of fear? in threat.
Mhm.
You have to erase people from memory. You have to erase people from other people's memory, essentially, and dehumanize them. There's just so much to love, love, quote unquote, love about the arc.
Yes.
And we have the introduction of a new admiral, who is, the good side of authority, in the same vein as Garp and Kobe.
Mhm.
And then you have just small moments of like, this is probably peak Usopp. And sorry, I would go on and on about, this is my favorite arc, but again, I
Okay.
wouldn't put it above Marineford for uh, uh, the ranking, but it is
Mhm.
definitely a plus.
Okay. Look, that's a very, very good point. Very good points that you made. The Orlong parallel is very, very strong. And I'm glad that you had brought that to my attention. I now have a better appreciation for it. Now, Jack, Where did you place Dressrosa?
C.
In C. Why so low?
Jay described it as the better Alabasta. I think it is the worse Alabasta. I think it is the Kmart brand Alabasta. I think it is the cheap copy Alabasta.
Oh my
It is
goodness, man.
it is the garage sale warped Tupperware in the dishwasher. Um, here's the thing. Here's the
Okay,
thing.
you don't have to be mean. You don't have to be mean.
I know, right? You're just dragging it through the mud right here, man.
All
Basically
right, all
saying
right,
that
all
this
right.
is like the
All right,
Sunday
let me be
sale.
fair.
Yeah,
Let me be fair. Let me be fair. Okay, Fujitora is awesome.
yeah.
Sabo having something to do in the story for once is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The flashback that Doflamingo has to his childhood is chilling. The story of Corazon is heartwarming. The
Mm-hmm.
story of the toy soldier ever at your side is also heartwarming. But this arc is too damn long with too many damn goofy characters and too many stupid, poorly thought out devil fruit powers that make little sense. And so one other thing that Jay mentioned is that um, I don't remember Jay's exact words here, but he compared it to Alabasta in the sense that you have a series of one-on-one fights that sort of matches that. I disagree with that because you have half the crew here, not the whole crew here. You do have some one-on-one fights between new characters that are introduced in the arc, and that makes sense. But overall, I just thought Dressrosa was going through Dressrosa. That was the first time that I thought One Piece is not as good as it used to be.
Ooh.
And that was the first time. Certainly not the last time I thought that, but it was the first time. Um, Again, to be fair, I'm incredibly because I read through this recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm incredibly moved by some of the things that I described it as a positive, and one of the things that moves me as a Skypiea Saga fan and a fan of Jaya was the reintroduction of Bellamy and the that he and Luffy face. Um, that was very touching. Uh, Setting aside the positives, Dressrosa feels to me like a cheap copy.
So, to add insult to injury, to Jay, I would say initially I did have Dressrosa at C as well. However, the Arlong analogy was very apt, and so I would say it either belongs in C plus or B. I would probably say B for my final one because it feels very formulaic with some of the other themes that we've run into before. And for me, Dressrosa never really paid off in terms of the dark underworld with the arms dealing that Punk Hazard had established beforehand. And granted, there were other themes that were going on, but the whole point with Joker working for Kaido was to make weapons, and we aside from Punk Hazard, we never really saw the influence that that operation had for Kaido. So it was sort of disappointing for me in that regard. Now, Jay, seeing as how you had Dressrosa so high on your list, do you have any rebuttals before we debate on where Dressrosa should be placed?
Uh, Again, I think this is one of those key examples
Mm-hmm.
of why Jack's opinion is so informative.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, yeah, Dressrosa, at least as I've heard it, is the point of bloat with One Piece
Mm-hmm.
because it is a chapter that, as I remember, ranks over 100 chapters, right, Jack?
Oh yeah, over 10 volumes. Over
Oh,
10 volumes.
yeah.
For the
Okay.
first for the first time in the history of this story, you have an arc, not a saga, an arc that lasts over 10 volumes. And to me, that is you know, a little bit excessive.
Yeah, maybe because, as I recall, again, I'm not the manga guy in the
Mm-hmm.
call right now, but I believe Marineford is like 30 or 35 or something around there. So it's
Yep.
literally
Yep.
3 times as long as Marineford, which is, my S tier arc. So I understand the bloat problem, and
Mm-hmm.
I understand from a reader's perspective that it's very problematic. And I think the animation or the anime does a lot heavy lifting in that regards
Mm-hmm.
to curve those edges, those rough edges that probably Jack has, uh, poignantly pointed out about it. It's just like the substance of it is so much more and executed on such a level for me that everything works, especially when we get to Whole Cake and Wano following that Doflamingo's backstory when it's compared to Arlong and uh, Crocodile and every villain up to this point, that Doflamingo is the villain of One Piece. I mean, I like Rob Lucci a little bit more because he's kind of like,
Dark Justice.
yeah, he's the Batman, or he's the, well, no, that's not fair. He's the absolute, what is his catchphrase essentially? Absolute justice or something like that.
I think
Like
Dark
so.
he's
Justice.
Yeah,
Dark
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 Justice
Justice.
is Lucia.
Yeah, yeah. So like it's like he's the worst version of Akainu's, military or, marine system. But Doflamingo is the perfect version of what celestial dragons want and what that effect has on the world. Like we didn't get any of that with Crocodile. He's just a opportunistic, uh not nepo baby. I was thinking about Warpole again, but yeah, he's just a businessman. That's why
Yeah, he's
Crocodile
just
is
a
so cool because he's
businessman.
just a businessman. Yeah, but yeah, but Doflamingo is just twisted, wronged. Villains aren't born; they're made. Kind of uh,
Yeah, he
archetype
he
for him,
he
and
he goes
then
out of
you
his
get
way to make you suffer. Yeah.
right because he has a goal, and if you're in his way, he's going to step on you. And again, it's one of those admirations maybe for well-written villains. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to go a little bit too much, maybe because this is the one point, Jack. I'll probably say like I need to stand on. Let me put it in the sea. Um, but besides the bloat problem, besides the misalignment of or the absence of some of the crew members, it's like, yeah, everyone has something to do. There's no better moment in the story of Usopp. I'm not an Usopp stand. I'm never going to be an
Hmm.
Usopp stand. He's the One Piece, or he's the one crew member I don't mind if they kill off. But this is peak for his character. And then there's like small things with Senior Pink and his backstory. I think Jack
Yeah.
brought that up, but there was just so
I
much
will
depth.
definitely concede on that. That had me feeling guilty for hating the character until I read the flashback. So
Right.
I will concede there. Yeah.
Yeah, which is the strength of Oda as a writer is like, yeah, you can hate these characters, but when you get, as you mentioned during Fishman Island with Fisher Tiger, like it informs Arlong's character retroactively.
Hmm.
Same
Yeah.
thing with a lot of other instances of when we get Kuma's background as well. So for right now, it is
Okay. I think he is. I'm just gonna put a pause real quick. Hold on. All right. For the final consensus, because Jay felt so strongly and had some very good points in regards to Dressrosa, even though it was so high. And honestly, like it was low on our takes, but it did have some good points. So I would say that just to even it out, A would be good. So it's like just slightly above average, despite the bloating problem. Do you agree with that, Jack?
No, B.
B, not
Yeah.
even the B plus.
All right.
Right there, right beside it, buddy. Punk Hazard. So we'll
Wait,
go
are we
ahead.
really? Wait, Jack, are you having a problem with it being a B plus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why? Why do you have problems with it being a B plus?
No, I'm just
'Cause-
saying it's like no, like as we're trying to compromise on how the anime has introduced the same storylines. I'm just saying like you're speaking from a like okay manga perspective, so I think that's a little bit more of a uh, you're speaking with authority, while I'm just speaking as like hey, I'm just some guy that watches anime. But yeah,
Some plebeian.
yeah,
I think it's a
and
situation of I love Dressrosa the anime adaptation of it that I need to go and read the manga so I can see what you're hating about it.
yeah, that's a fair point. I have not watched the Dressrosa anime, and it's
Mhm.
entirely possible that they did a better job of it. I can't imagine how, but it's entirely possible that they did. So that's a fair point. I don't know.
Okay.
I have not seen it the way that you have seen it, and that may make the
Yes.
difference. That may make the
See it through
difference.
my eyes. So would you be happy with B?
All right, B. B.
Okay,
B.
I can lower it to B. It's fine.
Okay, so we have leveled Dressrosa down to B for Birdcage. Haha. All right,
Ah, that's clever.
now on to Zhao. Now, Jay,
Zoe?
Zoe, my apologies. Where do you want
Oh no, I was
Zoe to go?
asking. I thought it was Zoe.
I guess it's one of those pronunciation things like we did with Saba Odi.
Hmm.
Jack, how did you pronounce this arc? Zhao, Zo,
Za-
Zoo,
Zao.
Zhao.
Hmm.
All
Okay.
right.
Cool. Okay. This is for me. I place this as a A.
Ooh,
So
solid A.
the introduction of characters like Carrot, Dogstar, Cat Viper, as well as Jack is again one of those transitional
Mm-hmm.
arcs that serves as like a refresher or just a breather to set up what's to come. And again, why these arcs do feel a little like misplaced. And Jack did mention like talking about sagas, but I think there's so much not division, but there's so much varied highs and lows inside talking about the sagas that we wouldn't have a nuanced conversation. But like
Mm-hmm.
Zoe is just one of those good executions of a transition into a or what's the word prologue to the
Yeah.
next arc. So it just works as it does. So A.
Okay. Like I said, it's fair. Jack, where'd you place Zoe?
D.
B.
No,
Why?
D.
Oh,
D.
oh, D. I'm sorry. I keep getting your
D.
D's mixed up, and your
D
B's
as
and
in
D's.
D as in the will of.
You know what? I think I must be a One Piece fan because I'm getting heated. Okay, Jack, what's D about it?
All
Like,
right.
do you not like Discworld? Are you not a sci-fi guy? Do you not like civilizations on the back of animals?
Um, thou to me jumps the shark.
Ooh, how so?
Uh, my suspension of disbelief is even as a One Piece fan for almost 20 years. Zhao really tests my suspension of disbelief. I'm not a fan so much of the minks. I'm not really vibing with the dog, Dog Storm and Cat Viper. I
Mm,
look, I think Zhao. The reason I put Zhao where I put it
Hmm.
comes down to a matter of taste, not so much substance. Like the only thing of substance that I think I can really point to and have some credibility here is I do not like the fact that after not seeing Sanji, Nami, Brook, Chopper for what is at this point 7 volumes of the manga,
Hmm.
we see the aftermath of what happened to Zhao, and then we Tarantino the story and go back and find out that Vincent Vega and Jules ate the big Kahuna burger and killed the guy in the apartment. Okay, like I don't like I don't like Zhao because Zhao does that mystery box thing and then
Hmm.
fills it up with an explanation, and then these and it feels so much like a placeholder. It really is a placeholder. I appreciate, having read it recently, I appreciate that it is the last time for a while that the crew will be all together.
Mm.
Um and I appreciate that they are coming up with a plan on how to get to Wano from there. But I it felt like a placeholder to me. It felt like a story substitute, which is perfectly, I mean, it's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong. I
Hmm.
just didn't. It just did not vibe with me as taste.
Okay, that's fair. Like you said, it may not be for everybody. Um, for me, I put Zoe at B for Bravo on my list, where it was sort of like the average. Um, for me, it was a phrase that I've used from you, Jack, recently. Good, not great, and it's pretty much standard. It's very, very interesting. I think Jay had mentioned it. Um, there were some very interesting things that they had brought up. Like they brought in Jack, who was supposed to be the essentially the second in command for the Beast Pirates, and
Before he got his ass kicked.
yeah, and I would say the one moment that really stood out to me was when everybody came together and they had the party and everybody was sleeping, but the people who were stood watch were the oldest, and it was either Brooke or it was Frankie. Had made the comments like, well, it's time for the adults to stand guard, like that sort of thing. Whereas, like, okay, like this was a cool moment that we've never had these characters have before, right? So, like, they have this understanding, after, being mature or after a certain age. So that was kind of cool. But those are my thoughts. And
I I'd
yeah,
I'd like to throw a little curveball if you guys don't mind.
okay.
Jay, I would like to hear what you think is, and other than what you may have already mentioned about Zhao, I would like to know uh where I'm off base on this. Maybe you can change my mind. What about Zhao is so good?
Oh, interesting. Okay. To take a step back again, I think it is. I think you again. I don't disagree with anything you really said. I just said is like there are arcs here that are transitional. So if you're saying like I think you said this earlier that you're putting in relationship to the arcs around them, and I think this is just one of those intriguing. And and I think you use like the. I think this is your worst comparison today because I love Pulp Fiction. It's like Quentin Tarantino is my guy. I mean, him and Luc Besson and wow.
So his slander came off as compliments to you?
Yeah, it's like your taste of storytelling, I guess, here is askew because it does feel like the most experimental, maybe, or the one that is you wouldn't think Oda has written, maybe. Interesting. But yeah, it is a case of I love everything that has to do with. I mean, I'm sure I could say Joy Boy now, but everything that's going on with the Void Sentry, the whole design. And I guess I would counter ask is like, what is off-putting with Dog Star, Cat Viper when we just had fish people? Are you just anti-furry?
Well, yes, but also, but also, I'm anti people feuding and deciding to take over shifts at 6 p.m. And if they interact with each other, they'll try to kill each other like that. Like miss me with that.
Okay, so how do you? Well, I mean, we haven't gotten to Little Garden yet, but how do you feel about their rivalry? Their rival, the
I
rival
feel
between the two giants.
the rivalry between the Cat Viper and Dogstorm and the rivalry between Dory and Broggy are as different as night and day to me.
Okay. So yeah, this is going to be a wormhole back and forth. Okay. So I don't think we have time for it, but I'm happy to put it in C plus.
Okay. But you had it all the way up in A, didn't you?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, this
C
is his
plus is
worst
good.
arc. I mean, can't really talk a man out of what he hates.
Yeah.
Oh, not even hate, just think is the
I I
worst.
I,
So I
do
don't
you
I
mind giving
feel
it the C plus.
do you concede or
I'll,
does it belong in C?
I'll concede to C plus. I'll concede to C plus.
Okay. So that's wow. I'm surprised like how well you guys are doing this. Very, very um
It doesn't look quite like a
accommodating.
bell curve. Yeah, it does.
Just
A little bit.
a
A little bit.
wee bit. All right. Now, Whole Cake Island.
Oh boy, I think controversy is about to come up again. 'Cause I think I maybe overestimated how much Jack might love this, but I definitely put it in A plus.
A plus. Why?
Actually, it's S. You know what? I'm thinking about what it will be in the end, but what is on my list is S.
Okay, it's
So
on S. Okay.
yeah, again, if you're talking about why the Yonkos work and giving them the backstory and telling you how terrifying they are, you have Mom, Big Mom. If
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about impact on the crew and giving each member their Arlong Park, this is Sanji's. If you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
how deep motifs run and how bad this world is. You talk about what Sanji's dad did to him and his siblings. If you want to talk about interesting new characters, you have Pudding and all of Big Mom's kids and um, how interesting and diverse they can be. If you talk about fights and their impact on the characters themselves, you talk about Luffy versus Katakuri. Everything, again, perfect to what maybe perfects the One Piece formula is whole cake. So that's
Very astute, very concise. I do like your observations regarding whole cake. Jack, what about you? Where do you place whole cake on the spectrum?
I ranked it at a D plus.
this.
Oh!
This.
Oh my goodness!
I'm gonna cry.
Before before before
Yes.
before either of you have a stroke.
Okay.
Okay, hang
Okay.
on,
Okay.
hang on,
Okay.
hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, I'm reading this arc now. Well,
Yes.
not like literally right now. I'm not like reading One Piece while I'm talking.
Yeah, I'm just
Um,
multitasking. I'm
I'm
dunking on you guys while I'm reading the arcs, of course.
I'm at the beginning of volume 89, which
Mm-hmm.
is the tail end ish. I think some of it leaks into volume 90, but 89 is we're into the Luffy Katakuri fight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say this. My opinion of Whole Cake Island may be changing. And I just got to be honest with you guys and tell you where I ranked it. That's where I ranked
Mm-hmm.
it. But I'm not wedded to that opinion. I
Okay.
think Whole Cake has an advantage over Dressrosa in that it is that's a good plus. You know how much I love Sanji, and I think the development character. I wasn't in love with it at first, but it's grown on me. Um, the dynamic between him and Pudding over the course of the arc that grows on me. Um, the biggest detraction that I have from Whole Cake Island is Soul Soul.
Oh, the Big Mom's fruit.
I think it's goofy and bizarre, and I'm also not a fan of Big Mom as a bad guy, as a villain. It takes very little to neutralize her or to put her in a vulnerable position. You
Hmm.
so much as break a portrait of her, you know, human trafficker nun mother, and guess what? You basically scope of the fight. Um, I uh, I, I found Big Mom to be disappointing as a villain. I found it even more disappointing that Luffy's big battle of that arc was not with her, but with her subordinate. That felt like a break from the One Piece formula a little bit to me. Now, I know that Luffy fights subordinates of bad guys before. Little Garden, he fought Mr.
Hmm.
3 before fighting Crocodile later on. But the significance of this fight, in my opinion, did not match the rank of Luffy's adversary. Um, and that kind of threw me off a little bit. So for those reasons, I would rank it low. I am not committed
Not
to it
committed to the
being
D plus, but
to the D plus. I'm
okay.
willing to be way more flexible on that.
Okay, that's very good to hear because I placed it in A plus. And a lot of the reason why I did that was because of what Jay had mentioned earlier. It felt like it was a culmination of all the other arcs, and at first it was a little off-putting because we were getting a uh, retelling of Robin being stolen, but with Sanji. And I would say, like, as it played out, it worked, and it made, again, that motif that I mentioned earlier is like these other pirates coming and taking parts of the crew, trying to for their own devices, and we're dealing with one of the Yonko, which essentially is a superpower. Is like when they say you do this, you can't say no, and not only that, but the different machinations that everybody was doing. Everybody had their own objectives, their own ideals, and I really loved it how there are plans within plans within plans during the whole wedding scene. It was just very, very good to me. But for me, the reason why I don't have it any higher than the A plus is something that's a bit akin to both of your worlds, the manga and the anime. Now, when the fight between Luffy and Katakuri came out, it had gotten the title for having the longest fight ever recorded in anime history, even longer than the fight with Goku and Frieza.
Oh
And
gosh.
it's because like it's just padding because it was around the same time that the manga and Whole Cake like it was catching up, so they had to pad for time, and that's what sort of killed it for me in the anime. But aside from the bloating, everything else about it was just still pretty stellar. Now, Jay, yeah, seeing as how you had the highest rank on here, and Jack is allowed for some wiggle room, where do you think that Whole K belongs on our list, and how would you convince Jack that it belongs there?
I mean, I don't think I need convincing. I don't think Jack needs convincing. It's just like a case of, it's just wild that that was your takeaway. I mean, again, we don't really have time to talk deep stuff about
Yeah.
each arc, but it is in the case of what I would be happy with. Again, it is an improvement on Dressarosa, so I would say I would be happy with a B plus. Uh,
Okay.
Settlement, but it is interesting, and Jack doesn't have to talk more about it, is that Big Mom as a villain isn't really a villain because she does bad things for her family while Doflamingo uses his family to do bad things. So,
Oh,
in the
that's a good
terms
call.
of what I think makes Big Mom a good villain, is that she does straddle the line of a temperament on what
Mm-hmm.
we're used to the One Piece formula and to the One Piece villain archetype. Is that Big Mom does stray on the line of more towards Shanks than more towards Kaido and Black. So even if she's not a strong villain, I think she's a good character, which are two different things. So I think that's why I like Big Mom as a character. Her impact as a villain might be lacking, and she might not rank high, but I think she is baseline to what works for that arc, and it being like a side adjacent to Judge, who is the villain of that arc. So I would say B plus is a good place to settle.
Okay. I can concur to that. Like it's good, but from what we've shown before, it it is lacking in other departments. So now we're going back to East
Jack
Blue a
didn't
little
give his
bit.
approval.
Oh, Jack, do you agree that whole cake belongs in B plus?
All right.
Okay. Now that we've got the seal and the stamp, we can talk a little bit about East Blue. Now, Jay, where does it go?
Worst arc. D.
Ooh.
This is amazing. Okay, let's talk about this. Anyways, this is a feels like why there is a misconception about what One Piece is as
Mhm.
a story. That this is a poor man's, not poor man's, but this is a misstep in setting up what East Blue is as a saga, because it feels so isolated, it feels so one note, it feels like a simple demonstration of the power system that
Mhm.
is devil fruits, and then it doesn't showcase what going to each island is in this Odyssey type story. It's like it's nothing noticeable about Orange Town as a place.
Okay. That's fair. Like you said, it's basic, but way too basic, especially with the expansive world of One Piece that we are in. Jack, do you concur? Where does Orange Town belong on your list?
Uh, I do not concur. I will stipulate that this is no one's favorite arc. Um, at the same time, it's nice to see Buggy the Clown as a legitimate bad guy and as a force to be fought rather than a joke.
Hmm.
And Buggy the Clown, ever since this arc, is a joke. I think its first appearance is terrifying, especially after Zoro ostensibly cuts him, kills him, and then all of a sudden he gets up and you don't really understand it until he reveals his chop chop powers. Um, I like Orange Town for a different reason though. I like it because of Shoo Shoo the dog and because of the mayor.
Mm.
I like it because the townsfolk are ready to do whatever it takes to, protect their beloved mayor, and they chase the Straw Hats out. I love the poetic irony Straw Hats having to flee town because they're pirates, and Luffy's brutal honesty that yeah, we're pirates, and then Nami's like, don't tell them that. And I think it's a good pace. I think it's a good length. I think the fight between Zoro and Kabaji is interesting. Um, I ranked it at B.
Oh, B as in Buggy. Okay. Now, let me see. I had ranked Orangetown at C plus, whereas mainly it was because of it being essentially just like the basic storyline.
Mhm.
Um, akin to like what Jack had said. Fairly fun, but like it was essentially like a beginning for like what Luffy would encounter. And I didn't think it was necessarily just like one stop, like what Jay had mentioned, because we do see Buggy try to come back and do his best to offset Luffy's rise to stardom and actively try to deter him at every turn for the rest of the East Blue. But oh, sorry, I'm getting my words mixed up. But not in East Blue, but in other storylines. So I do see the ramifications of the exploits in that direction. But that aside, because with it being so low on Jay's list and it being fairly high, where do you guys see that Orange Town lies on our list? Should it round the bell curve a little bit more or stay at
I'm I'm
C?
I'm fine with it at a C plus.
C plus? What say you, Jay? Sounds like you want to go for blood. Let me see. Okay. So Jay agrees with it being at C plus. So C plus we shall stay with. Skip. Sorry. I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. Let's see. So, oh, wrong page, wrong page. All right. So, we will start with the Revieri, and this time, just to change things up a little bit, because it's been a little bit mundane with it going, a little bit over 2 hours with our same rotation. We shall start with Jack in our location for the Riviere, or Riviere? Riviere? How do you pronounce this, Jack?
Reverie.
That one, that word, Reverie.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
Where did you place
Um,
this on your list?
I gave it a C.
Really?
Yep. I love it. I loved it very much. I love seeing Vivi again. I love seeing the coalescence of all these different characters. But, I mean, it was just so short, and it didn't. Again, it's kind of difficult for me to consider this an arc per se. At most, it was a few chapters. But I did like it. I thought it was a good few chapters, and so that's essentially where I would rank it. I'd give it a C.
Okay. Like, I would definitely. So, like I said, we're doing the rotation a little bit different. So it's good that like it's solid, but like the fact that it's solid and short, I guess it's just a bit surprising because like most solid uh arcs you place a little bit higher in your list, but we were sharing the same brain cell with this because with Reverie I placed it at C, and I felt like I think like for me like it was just a little bit too short. There wasn't really anything to really learn from on this one. I think it was a little bit basic. It was interesting that we were getting to learn that there was a place for all of the different bodies of governing people. They were able to sit down and essentially have their UN, so to speak, and that there was a mastermind behind that. But I still feel like it was lacking in some regard. But and I know like looking at the chat a little bit, Jay says that he believes that the Reverie is at B. So with that, I believe that the consensus between our different things is that we should be at C plus. Jack, do you believe the same or no?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So on to the next one. Syrup Village. Jack, where do you place Syrup Village?
Syrup Village, I put in the A tier.
Ooh, so high. Why so high?
I love Kuro as a villain. I love the simplicity of the story there, and I love Usopp, and I love Usopp's introduction. I love uh, the the twist on the boy who cried wolf, and
Hmm.
the um, it's a really good arc, and I like um the way that it plays out. But really, it has to do with Kuro. I think Kuro is the most underrated One Piece villain.
Oh no, no, I definitely believe you there. Um, let's see. Keeping in current with our new rotation, I it's my turn, and I would say I'm looking back at my list, and for me, I had put Sir Village at C plus because back then when I was making the list, C was around like the average, and it was good seeing a villain as meticulous as Kuro and seeing the machinations and sort of see what pirates are willing to go through in order to make their in order to meet their goal. And it was also very very interesting seeing the crew fight for or to fight along with a known liar, sort of like you said, like a good twist on the boy who cried wolf. And according to Jay, Jay is also in a C plus ranking with Syrup Village. No, remind me, Jack, you said that Syrup Village was in A. Now, seeing as how you're so high up, do you think that Syrup Village should be in B on a list? Anywhere
I'd
else?
I'd be
Hmm.
willing to drop it down to B. I'd be willing to put
Drop
it
it
in
down to
B.
B. Okay. And I think like that should be a good average or summation for where we should place Syrup Village. Now is for a fairly big one, the most recent arc in our list so far. It is the country of Wano. Now, Jack, where did you place this on your list?
Wano is a D.
Whoa! Oh, that's okay. Explain yourself.
um, the first word that comes to mind is bloated. This is the longest arc in
Mm-hmm.
One Piece history. Um, Wano has several positives, and it's certainly unique.
Mm-hmm.
But I will commit another act of One Piece blasphemy and say that Oda's ability to draw has significantly weakened, and this arc shows it.
Okay.
Um, I think the story is interesting, but it is so convoluted and
Mm-hmm.
filled with so many different things to keep track of, so many different characters to keep track of. Um, and I mentioned earlier that I thought Dressrosa was the arc. I think okay, One Piece is not as good as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Wano was the first arc that made me think reading One Piece is a chore now.
Mm. Okay. It's like I would say so like so you could say there were hardly any benefits to reading this arc then, even in some of
It
your
ha-
rereads.
I haven't reread it yet. I'm getting close to it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
my opinion will change. I just it has a lot of significance for the lore. That much is true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not impressed with Kaido. I'm not I'm getting inconsistency with his character. I'm not I never found him to be very and after 15 volumes I still don't.
I mean, yeah, you're I can see where you could see that. Because
It's okay
yeah.
if you can't. It's okay if you
No,
can't.
I mean like a little bit because like when they first introduce you to Kaido, they hype the hell out of him. honestly, my first introduction to Kaido was in the anime, where you see him jump from a sky island trying to commit suicide. I think it was around. It was in
Yeah,
between
yeah,
Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, I believe.
yeah. That was a
And
terrible, terrible, terrible first impression.
well, I guess like for me, like it was sort of like, well, damn, this man can't kill himself. How is the crew going to overcome this obstacle, right? That sort of thing. And for me, I have it a little bit early. I have it a little bit higher on the list. I do have it at C plus, where it's a little bit better. And the reason why I have it so low, I want to say, is like I chalk it up mainly to Japanese storytelling, I think, because
Mhm.
when they introduce the Wano arc, they introduce it in a very, very Japanese way. And like I don't know what it's called, but I think it's a form of storytelling where you have somebody there with that two string instrument, and they're telling a story. I forgot what that is called, but it's something akin to that. And just like you said, like the lore and building up the things like that, like I feel, and I just feel like I there was some stuff lost because there's a lot of Japanese stuff that I don't really know. And even then, like we get to see closing of the loop with Zoro and Shusui. We get to see a little bit of I'm trying to think. It's I guess like the reason why I do have it so low is because like it doesn't seem to be adding anything new. It's taking stuff that we've seen, say in Alabasta or Dressrosa, but just doing it at the scale of a Yonko. Nothing really. It's just like a pirate taking over a village or a kingdom and making them work to his bidding, and not necessarily seeing him. Well, I mean, no, we do see him utilize weapons, but it's not necessarily the weapons that excuse me, it's not necessarily the weapons that Joker was giving him. I guess like they were producing the smiles, so I would take that back. But it was just there was some lacking, and with the introduction of Gear 5, it felt like it was a bit of a cop out, especially when it happened. But I mentioned before, like there could have been some foreshadowing to it, but not to the point to where it was a good subtlety. Like we've had some subtle references, say like in Skypiea and things like that, but like they were few and far between. But that's my take on it. Now Jay's back with us. Jay, do you have any thoughts on Wano? Where would you place it on
Yeah,
the
so
scale?
this is in the B tier for me.
Hmm.
And where did Jack put it?
Jack put it on the very bottom.
Okay, just making sure. So I think this is like when you say the bloat problem of One Piece,
Mhm.
this is like this is the example
It's in
because
B for bloat.
again, again, Jack can probably tell me, but I think that this ranks around the 150 mark for the chapters, as I
Somewhere
recall.
around there, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like 50 more chapters than Dressrosa, which is already a bloat problem, or
Hmm.
technically 5 times as long as Marineford. So, yeah, if you want to think about that kind of considerations. But the one thing I would say about this specifically, why I put it in B, is that it feels like the use of Kaido is very underserved, and that
Hmm.
nothing about his character is really fleshed out in any meaningful way. And the introduction of Yamato is way too late in the story. He should have been given the Vivi treatment of potential crewmate, but it was just like, oh yeah, Yamamoto's there. He's there. He doesn't get anything to do about it, but I think I agree with everything else that was said and why it's on the lower spectrum. Again, why I didn't think the talk about the sagas was very beneficial. That Wano is kind of the key example of why everything post time skip is problematic or lesser than the pre time skip material. So I did enjoy that Jack talked about the quality of the manga from Oda's standpoint. It's like
It started to
the not
dwindle or
downgrade,
wane.
but the noticeable weight of what he's accomplishing. Even like right now, he's on a 3 week break, I believe, and
Yeah.
in his press release, it was like, "Oh, it's time to think about what the One Piece is." Or no, not the One Piece. I don't know if he used the as the article, but he said like it needs time to think about what One Piece is essentially. So the wrapping up of things. So yeah, I think it's a solid B. So I don't know where it should be placed finally, but I think it's in the B C plus range.
Okay, that's fair.
I'd be willing to stipulate the C plus.
C plus. And okay, we'll stick to C plus. Editor's note, at this time, Jay is temporarily unable to record. However, he is able to correspond with us via chat and returns later in the podcast. So, see how Jack and I hold up in being flexible and spontaneous on the spot as we continue this tier list. Baratier. Now, Jack, where'd you place the Baratier?
S.
S. Okay. I think I know why, but go ahead and tell us why.
Oh, Jay in the chat. Even a man bristling with powerful weapons can be skewered by the spear of blind grit. My job as a cook is to feed someone, not to judge them. Baratier was the very first exposure to One Piece I ever had. And I'm not, immune from having nostalgia maybe cloud my judgment. But seeing Sanji feed Don Krieg was my first impression in this story. And it's brilliant. I love everything. I love everything about it. I love the fact that you have the Zoro Hawkeye fight. Cool. I like the fact. I like the characters of Patty and Karn. I like Zeph. I like the flashback with Sanji. The only thing I don't really care for is the so-called Invincible Pearl, who's kind of a joke.
Yes,
But
yes.
I love Don Krieg. I think Don Krieg is an underrated villain as well. He is the type of person a realistic pirate would expect to encounter on the open seas. Somebody who thinks the way to do this is military might. And I like Geen and his evolution as a character. Another great line. I know so many lines are perhaps more from this one than any other. Geen says to Don Krieg, nobody had ever been so kind to me in my life, and is there any way the ship could possibly be spared? It's a lot. It's a good arc, and I think it is among the best of the best, which is why I put it at the S tier, and make no apologies.
Unapologetically, this is best. Sanji is best boy. His introduction deserves the treatment that it deserves. I would say for me, when I was making this list, I placed him at B. But hearing what you say, I do believe that Baratier belongs at B plus because it does a lot of things. Introducing Mihawk and the Shibukai, essentially what Jay had mentioned in our previous talk, how they were akin to natural disasters, and just having him just like come upon like this uh, uh, a round of fisticuffs around on random pirates, and he just cut through them just because he's out on the day, just like walking around. And like you said, it really does solidify Sanji's character and his code of honor, especially when it comes to cooking and his background. I would also say too, even though like we very I want to pull from what Jay had mentioned earlier regarding Luffy's backstory, because we do get more of Sanji's backstory from Whole Cake a little bit, and I view that like how Jay viewed Luffy's backstory, where it doesn't undercut his initial backstory that we give, but it just expands upon that and sort of deepens his character. So, and all that is to say that the Baratier was a solid introduction to him, like you said, and Don Krieg was a good character for the arc for that specific reason. So, Jay mentions that the Baratier belongs in B plus, and Jack, where do you think that the Baratier belongs? Because I know you have it pretty high. Should it be an
We
A?
Jay and I are doing some
Okay.
serious hardcore negotiating in the chat. I think I think an A minus is fair.
A
I'll be
minus.
willing
So a
I'll be
regular
willing to do
A.
that. Yeah.
No plus ultra there.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Oh, my apologies. He's initially said that the Baratier was a C plus. I don't want him to get back on the chat and
Oh.
rip me a new one. So he
Oh, that's right.
he did agree with a pretty big stipulation change. So Arlong Park. Where do you think Arlong Park belongs, Jack?
S plus.
S plus. Okay, I
Arlong
think I see a trend here. But
yeah.
why?
Arlong Park is the greatest arc in One Piece. Um
Ooh.
it is the best arc in One Piece. And it functions as a climax to the East Blue saga, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a brilliant, wonderful climax. The manga and the anime are both beautiful for this arc.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the anime adds a touch that I think is perfect, and it's unfortunate that the manga doesn't have this. This is one instance where I think the anime actually does something better than the manga.
Mm-hmm.
In the anime, there is a good dramatic beat of the four crew members walking toward Arlong Park.
Mm-hmm.
All of them look different, all of them are dressed different, all of them have different goals, different skills, different fighting abilities.
Mm-hmm.
All of them did not know each other a few days before,
Bum
and they are
bum
all
bum bum
yeah.
bum bum.
The background music in the Four Kids dub, I
Mm-hmm.
will never forget either, and they showed the same shots, and it was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And having all these characters come together for the very first time was important. Now, I know I mentioned earlier about Alabasta and the significance of Nami having a fight.
Yeah.
Um, this is a sort of smaller scale version of that, but I think it functions very well. And I think if you ask most One Piece fans, especially if they're in their 30s, most of them,
If you're old like me, no,
yeah,
no.
if you're an old One Piece fan like me, Arlong Park is where you fell in love and not let go of the story.
Okay, okay, that's fair. I really like you said, we all refer to Harlem Park in some of our earlier rankings as well. And for me, when I was making it, I initially had it at B. Excuse me, just because essentially established the tone for like what we were going to see, similar to what we saw in Orange Town, but like on a grander scale, and as far as having an emotional hold on a character, and very much like what you said, and how uh, these newly formed crew members, like how they essentially came together to help a former crew member through their emotional fight, is very, very powerful. And now that I think about it, I would probably put Arlong Park at B plus. Like I still believe that these guys expand on Arlong Park. What was introduced in Arlong Park much better, but it did become a good trendsetter in that regard. Now, let me see. Uh, Jay mentions that Arlong Park belongs in A plus. Now, Jack, because you have it really, really high as an S plus, you believe that it should stay in the A plus?
I think for our very first
Yeah.
S tier in a consensus poll among the three of us, I think our Long Park belongs in the S tier.
Okay. Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, I think it should. Just because, like I mentioned before, like it is essentially like the trendsetter, and everything like builds off of it in a good way. Like it definitely affects the story in a positive way. So I can see that. Hey, look, it's starting to look like a bell now.
My plan
Oh,
worked.
I know, right? How about that? Oh, we haven't gotten to the bell yet part just yet, but we are at another important section, Logtown. Now, Jack, where do you believe Logtown belongs?
I put that in B.
Ooh, wait, B as in boy, D as in
Yep,
dog.
B as in boy.
Okay, cool. Why?
I think it's a pretty good transition arc from the end of East Blue to the beginning of the Grand Line.
Mm-hmm.
This is one area where also the anime and the manga diverge a lot. The anime fleshes this arc out a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few filler episodes in there, but the anime does a great job with it. The manga, Logtown, is all of 4 chapters, or 4 or 5 chapters in the manga.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which is
Hmm.
really weird. It's really truncated, but I think it's still a good. I think it's a neat arc. I think it's neat to see the significance of the fact that chapter 99 is called Luffy Dies. Um,
Luffy tries to
but
die. He didn't like
yeah,
it.
but it's pretty small, and but I think it's got a lot of good elements to it. I consider that to be baseline One Piece almost, and that's why I would put it in the
Hmm.
B.
Isn't that where we get introduced to Smoker as well? Lockdown.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was very basic One Piece as well. I put it at C plus, mainly because what I had mentioned earlier about Buggy coming back. He comes back in Logtown, tries to become an active antagonist against the crew, and he actually tricks Luffy into a situation where it seems like he's going to eat it, and then divine intervention. Um, but like it was fun, and like with the introduction of Smoker too, because we get to see Smoker become a bigger part. So I don't know, I feel like his introduction could have been a little bit better, but with what they do with his character, it doesn't really matter, because like they, at least like from here, um as far as like the pre time skip goes, like they do utilize Smoker fairly well after his introduction, in my opinion. Now, Jay had mentioned that Logtown is D plus. Now,
Ooh,
yeah,
brutal.
fairly low. And Jackie had mentioned that Logtown was a B for you. Now, where do you think that it goes? Do you think that it should stay in the C plus, C,
I, I'm fine with a C plus. I'll stipulate to that because
and
it
C
really is
plus?
yeah, it really is a small arc.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that he's even considered art. Like you said, like it's just 4 chapters in the manga, but it's good for what it does. All right, now Reverse Mountain. Where do you believe this guy goes?
Put that C plus.
C plus. Why is that?
It's again, it's another transition arc.
Hmm.
I like Laboon a lot. Um, the anime and the manga yet again, and the manga Reverse Mountain is all of like 3 or 4 chapters, and in the anime it is kind of connected to a filler arc
Hmm.
prior to that. But um, I like Crocus. I like the introduction to the whale. I like the uh, seeds that are sown there that sprout up much later on in the storyline. it's really surreal if you look at the flashback of Brook and Thriller Bark and
Mm-hmm.
you see Captain Corgi, I think the guy's name is. I can't remember. Um, the captain of the Rumbar pirates, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, he is drawn very similarly to chapters of this arc in the flashback that Crocus has, and it's like it's wild just to see the connections there. So, um, but I put it at C plus.
Okay. So, all very good. Like you said, Laboon's fairly fun, and I would say, like for me, I have put Reverse Mountain at C, mainly because, like you said, it was one of those transitionary arcs for me where it wasn't really doing a whole lot. It had a lot of good comedic beats, like what Long Ring Long Land has, especially with Crocus and his introduction. I just miss that type of comedy that was happening in One Piece, but it really wasn't doing a whole lot. If anything, like you said, like it does sow seeds for Brook, and they do pay off at the end. But other than that, it wasn't really doing a whole lot, at least for me. And Jay has mentioned that Reverse Mountain belongs in D plus. Now, Jack, with you putting it at C plus and Jay at D plus, I think that we should probably stick with C because
Yeah,
I
that
feel
makes
like
sense.
that would be good.
That
But
makes sense.
um, I'm just trying to think. Like, it's funny because like how you had mentioned Labu. Like, the first thing that popped in my mind was the frog that had popped up in Water 7, where it's yeah.
Yokozuna,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yokozuna. And um I don't know, like it's kind of funny. Like I feel like we need more little animals like that. But anyways, onward and upwards. Next we have Whiskey Peak. Now, where does Whiskey Peak belong on your list, Jack?
I put that at B.
Mhm.
Baseline One Piece, good adventure. I like Zoro cutting up the bounty hunters. I like the reveal of some of them being Alabasta and undercover. I think it's
Mhm.
a good foundation for the Baroque work saga to come.
Okay. No, that's fair. I would say, for me, I had it about C as well. Well, now that you mention it, probably I'll make it at C plus, because it was a good baseline, but like you said, like it did sow the seeds for Baroque works, and as I mentioned before with Alabasta, Alabasta really delivers on the promises of how extensive that network is, and I really liked how it sort of set a tone. It was a good start for Baroque Works and what they do. Now, let's see. I don't think Jay has given us his answer in regards to Baroque Works yet. So, um, I'm trying. I'm sorry, not Baroque Works. I meant Whiskey Peak, Whiskey Peak, and I would say, um, it's kind of funny because it reminds me of the meme. Tell me if you've seen this meme before, Jack, or not. But with Zoro not necessarily being that friendly to other nationalities aside from his own.
What? I
Like,
don't know. I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
it's I've seen a couple memes that like sort of popped up recently where it's like Zoro is kind of racist, where it's like a lot of the characters that he fights are people of color, like he manhandles the woman in Whiskey Peak. I forgot what her name was. She was like super strong or whatever, but like he just like
I,
basically
I
like gripped
call
her face.
hey, I call that equality.
But it's like along with that, and then Mr. One. And there was, I want to say there was another character. I forgot. But I know like those two characters are usually referenced in the racist Zoro memes. and it's
Man, I don't spend enough time on the internet, I guess.
oh, it's good. It's like you don't need to be on the internet like some of us. But let's see. So it seems like Jay's sort of AFK away from Whiskey Peak. We'll hold that there. Oh, well, you said Whiskey was at B for you? Or was it at
I said it
C?
was at B.
Yeah.
Jay says C plus. I mean, I can
Okay.
stipulate to C. I
All
can
right.
stipulate to C or C plus. I think I can.
All right.
You know,
C
yeah.
plus we will stay. Now, Little Garden. All right. Jack.
B.
B.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that?
I think it's really good. I like the villainous Mr. Three before he became a joke. I like
Mm-hmm.
Dorian Broggy, and I like again. This is another arc that sows seeds that we're seeing the results in even today.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's a good story about about fighting for an abstract kind of honor and integrity and I really like the characters of Dory and Broggy, and I think it's pretty good. This arc was omitted entirely from the Four Kids dub for reasons that I still do not understand. But
Really? You would have thought that
yeah,
Giants would have been a good thing for kids.
yeah, but anyway, yeah. For when the manga version of this came out, that was the only way I could read it, legally.
So
Or
then,
the only,
like,
or the, on-
yeah.
or I guess let me rephrase that. The only way to go through this particular part of the story was to read it in the manga for me. So,
Mm, so then, okay. I know, like, for me, Little Garden, I had placed it in my mind. I had the headcanon that Little Garden was filler, much like Long Ring, Long Land. So I didn't read it or watch it. But then recently, some developments happened in the story that tie back to Little Garden. And so I went back to watch it, and it was it was a lot better than what I had thought. And honestly, like for me, I had left. I had in making my rating. I had put Little Garden at B, actually, where it's a good basic story. And from what I had said almost an hour ago, where this was the arc, one of the arcs that I had watched, and the thing that surprised me was the parallels between Dorian Broggy and Zoro and Sanji, and the fight that they had that took place. It was very, very good seeing that parallel between the groups, that group of duos. I guess is that the right word? Or like those groups of pairings. It was very well done, and it also expanded on Baroque works, like you said, Mr. Three. I only knew Mr. Three as a joke, and I didn't realize that he had cunning to him until I saw Little Garden, and I kind of wish that we had more of that, especially in Impel Down. But with all that was going on there, it just a little bit of chaos had happening. But no, like it's like I said, it's very, very interesting. And looking back at the chat, Jay says that Little Garden should be at B. So this is this is a good. I'm glad that we were able to have a hat trick 3 times. What do
all
you say,
right,
Jack?
yeah, let's do it.
No, it's on to the last arc of this tier list. Now, Jack, where do you believe Skypiea belongs?
S.
S. Ooh. Oh, yes, S. Okay. So, why does it belong in S?
I love the themes of it. I love the the use of, I guess, quasi-religious imagery when describing the villain of the arc. I
Mm-hmm.
think Inaru is a fantastic bad guy, very clever, even though it kind of seems a little simplistic on the surface. I
Mm-hmm.
think that having Luffy be made of rubber, and having him fight Inaru, I think that was a brilliant kind of twist. Obviously, it didn't work in the short run, but it worked in the long. I like the flashback with Noland and Kalgara,
Mm-hmm.
difference of their two philosophies. I like the interplay with the Skypians and the Shandorans, and Gonfall the Sky Knight. Is really the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the
Yes.
of the arc. And I like the costumes that the Straw Hats wear. The costumes the Straw Hats wear, like at that point in time, hadn't really changed a whole lot over the course of the saga.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that it was cool to see them in that environment differently. Um, I think Skypiea is not a lot of fans' cup of tea because of how insignificant it is in the grand scheme of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But I think on its own, it's a lot of fun. I think it's fun that they are on an island that is in the, in the dadgum sky. That's fascinating. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's, the fact that they're able to hold their own too. I think is impressive. I think the old good old fashioned pirate trope of on the goal, that's fun. That's good stuff. So, Skypiea has been my favorite arc since 2007, I think.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, and it's got a great place in my heart. It was the first arc I ever watched entirely in the anime. So,
Okay. No, it's very good. Like you said, the themes that they deal with, and the foils that we have, the protagonist and the antagonist, is very good. And not to dunk on your favorite One Piece arc, but for me, I had it at. Let me check my list. I had it at C plus originally, but I think, like thinking back on it, I think I do need to have it at B plus, mainly because with me, I felt like that Skypiea was a little bit too long. Talking about that bloating problem, and mainly because like recently I went back and I watched the episode of Skypiea, and watching it that you feel how long it is, and it didn't necessarily need to be that long. The themes that they deal with, like you said, with Nolan, Kagura, and I, uh, like thinking back on it, like the reason why I had it so low is because it felt like the dreams that were set up in Jaya weren't really paid off, but hearing you talk about it, like they actually did, and with the foil that Luffy was to Eneru, it was the first time that it's funny because it's like having that gifted kid in class who gets an F even though he always gets A's and he doesn't know why, and it just frustrates him beyond no end, right? It's like that Luffy was that for Eneru, and that is funny to watch. And like you said, seeing him be a little bit more clever and having to overcome that obstacle that was Luffy, but still in the end having to fight for people's dreams, and like you said, look for the gold along the way. It was well, at least like the gold to help validate somebody's dreams was very very inspiring to a degree. And according to the chat, Jay believes that Sky Pia is an A, so I'm thinking he holds it in fairly high regard as well. Now, I'm thinking that because you had it so high, and because Jay had it so high, I believe that Skypiea should be an A. Or do you think that Skypiea should be an A plus?
Well, you know what I think.
But as far as averages go,
I think an A is acceptable.
A is acceptable. Okay. Final words, final thoughts,
Oh
questions, comments,
wow.
and concerns on Skypiea being A. Going once, going twice. Sold.
I
Oh
think
my
we've
goodness,
done it.
guys.
We've done
Oh
it.
no, I almost made it in time. The auction has sold. Okay.
Well, Jay, coming back as you did, was there any words that you had on Skypiea before we wrap up the cheer list?
Yeah, again, it's so funny that it's
Yeah.
not getting mentioned enough. It's just that the thing that really sells story-wise on this is the poneglyphs again, and then I don't
Mm-hmm.
think anyone mentioned like you get the first really signal post of Roger's impact or his reach as king. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
he was there. He was like, no one else has been here,
That's
but you
right.
know who
That's right.
was
That's
here?
right.
The one guy
He
that
had
should be
the
here.
Roger, yeah, he had the Roger, the Roger was here, like basically like
Mhm.
I was here type thing. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You're
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, and then that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
get paid off until Wano Country and like
Mm-hmm.
that connection, how deep it goes. But
Mm-hmm.
again, talking about Oda's map of everything, cluing you into what's going to happen in the future. But yeah, it's again like best villains, good fights. Again, I wanted to bring up the moment of nothing matters or nothing happened with Zoro and later down the story, but Sanji kind of has that moment again, or first, and no one really talks
Mm-hmm.
about it, which is cool. And again, introducing this very OP villain and who is a direct, not counter to Luffy, but Luffy is a counter to him. It's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. And then the idea of these super weapons and his flying arc, and then we get Noah a little bit down the line. So again, it's a very much contained story. And again, what the whole island hopping adventure of the Odyssey is, as well as this story, is that these are just places you visit and not forget, but they're unforgettable in how they are and how the climate changes. And like this is like the first real danger to what the world offers. And it's perfect in that way. So I don't fault Jack for saying it is S class or S tier, or was it S plus?
No,
I forget which
he
one.
had S tier. He had S tier.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So I would say, like in that estimation, it is a step down from Arlong Park in that way, but it is a very well crafted addition that a lot of people kind of fault as that was the moment for broadcasting in the U.S. was the
Mm-hmm.
moment that they either slowed down release or I forget which was the history of that moment, but it's like Skypiea is that moment when people say, "I fell out of love with One Piece," or "It was a." This is the point where it's too long. If you're not into it, this is like the bump in the story. Which I guess if you don't understand what the story is, then that is a negative. And again, why this is such an interesting conversation topic is that this is like the barometer of what the story is supposed to be, so it's above baseline. So why I put it as A is because it's like what is the key heightened example of what the formula of the story is. So not crazy about it, won't revisit it. It's not something that I remember, you know, um, not passionately, but um, with great care. But it is like above board. So I think, yeah, A is fine.
Okay. No, it's rightly said. Like you said, only the real ones can get past Skypiea. If not, One Piece ain't for you. I'm sorry. That's just my funny takeaway from that. But no, like very well said. As you said, I don't really have anything else to add from that. But this is our list as it is completed. Let me just look back. Yep, it's no more aside from Egghead, which isn't complete yet. Now, looking at this slightly skewed bell curve, how do you guys feel about this as you look on in glory at the official Weebs on the Weekend tier list for the One Piece arcs as we know it in
I think
2024?
I think
It's
I think
wild.
it says a lot that we kept most things above C plus.
Okay.
Mm.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, our bell you said our bell is slightly skewed,
Mm-hmm.
more so to the higher tiers, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We and some of this, I mean, obviously had some in the D's and D plus ranges, but on average, which we tried to do,
Mm-hmm.
um, on coming together, it still maintains a bell shape with in higher tiers. I think that says that most of One Piece is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like you said. Um that
It's wild that in regards to me and Jack having either the same placement or opposite placements of certain ones, because I'm sure all my East Blues were D or D, C, and all of the same for A, B's for Jack. So it's funny that it's, of course, the bell curve would have been created for that reason alone. It's like we had like 6 of them that were opposites, and then even for the later posts, some of my favorite my A's and S were his D's and C's. So, um, it's amazing. Yeah, so yeah, so the bell curve feels like I think Sam was like the most moderate of us, and from the hat tricks to the opposing opinions, we of course got a bell curve that slightly leaned towards the negative for
well,
most of the
mm-hmm.
post skip.
But I would say like just jumping off of what you said, how like you had something that were in the A's and Jack had something that were in the A's, but you know it's like you guys sort of like reverse the polarity on your likes and dislikes. So with that, can you say that essentially One Piece can be for anybody, right? Since there were a lot of stories that you liked and there were a lot of stories that Jack liked at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, 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 yeah. Because of anything that got the revelation from this was that when you say I like when you say, "Oh, I'm a fan of One Piece," you're not really actually saying anything because One Piece has everything. it's it's like not saying like, "Oh, my favorite flavor is vanilla" because you're basic. It's just like, "Oh, I like the chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla." You know that Neapolitan?
Neapolitan, yeah. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
Neapolitan's
It's like
my favorite. It's like it has
mm,
everything.
yeah, yeah, it's like it's perfect. So you don't know what you like because if you're saying, "Oh, how can I recommend you something?" or "What are your defining tastes?" and you're saying One Piece, it's like, "Oh, so you just want a little bit of everything," and which is
It's
fine.
like
It's
so
just
you're
like it's
non-committal.
not. Yeah, but again, why I was saying I was
Hmm.
maybe more of a defender than a fan is because this is something that's worth defending, and I think there
Hmm.
is a lot of misconceptions and bad word of mouth and uninformed opinions about the series that is just in the community and from those that are outside the community looking in. So I think it is a case of this is like, oh, where should I drop someone? So if someone says like, oh, One Piece is too long, what arc would you
Hmm.
say? Maybe this is to you guys too. What arc would you say is a good like standalone? You can say, oh, here's a sample of it, and here's what you'll get through the long run or through the course of it. I would say that was um, Thriller Bark, but apparently I am so off base with that, according to Jack. But I would say Thriller Bark is the one I would introduce to someone that says, "Oh, what's One Piece about?" I'm like, "Oh, here's this. Here's this Scooby Doo, vaudevillian, cartoonish humor, horror story that showcases the power system and the terror and the social commentary political commentary that goes along with it. So here's the snapshot. I wouldn't say, oh, check out Romance Dawn, but I would say check out Thriller Bark. But yeah, do you guys have like a arc
Oh,
that
that's a
does
good
that?
question. That's a good question. What about you, Jack? How about you answer that first?
I
Or do
would
you
say
do?
you,
I'm sorry. Go on.
I would say you need to read chapter 1 of the manga first. And then if you decide you would rather watch the show, watch Jaya episode 144, or hell, just do Long Ringo Longoland.
Oh my goodness. Um. So why watch the first episode of Jaya?
Because that at that point you have 7 crew members together, and the
Mm,
next focus of the story is a general adventure. I don't
mm,
even know that they necessarily mention going after the One Piece treasure, but the adventure is what dominates in that saga in the Skypiea. And I think that's a pretty good foundation of it. One Piece has got a lot of supernatural stuff in it,
mm,
and I mean, I think that the tone of adventure is what you want to convey in some. I think Jaya and Skypiea convey that well. Now, that is a huge commitment. That's 50 something episodes on its own. My favorite thing to tell people is, and this is not realistic,
mm.
my favorite thing to tell people is watch the first 53 episodes of the anime. And or failing that, read the first 11 volumes of the manga.
Mhm.
That if you don't like it by that point, then okay, put it down.
Then it's not for you. Okay. I would say for me, I would say I want to say Arlong Park.
Yeah.
Um, Mainly because it has a little bit of what uh Jay had mentioned. It has the corruption. It has social commentary. You get a lot more out of the live action, but when Arlon speaks about the humans, you feel like there is definite discrimination between the two races. So like there's something there. I would also say that the emotional story that you have with Nami and how Arlong essentially emotionally manipulates her. But Jack also makes a good point in that the spirit of adventure is also really big in One Piece. You don't really get a lot of that in Arlong Park. So as long as if you want them to have the spirit of adventure, maybe Long Ring Long Land, but not really, just because of I mean, it's nice and it's fun, but it doesn't have that adventure feeling. So for me, it would probably be between Arlong Park and Jaya, especially because of what Jack had mentioned, how Jaya is about like that spirit of adventure and going out and chasing your dreams. So that would be my answer to your question, Jay. So
All right, perfect. Yeah.
no, and like with that, like that's our list. It's oh my goodness, it's we did a lot of work tonight, gentlemen, or this today, depending on where you are when you're living. And I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to discuss One Piece at length again. This was very, very fun. Hopefully, you guys had a good takeaway from this and able to discern one another's tastes regarding One Piece. I would say, like, one final question before we close, because I know it seems like near the end or near the ending arcs, it seemed like we all ran into the same problems. Do you feel as though that One Piece will resolve those problems moving forward in some future arcs and trying to wrap up the story? Jack, we could start out with you.
Man, I really hope so. I would like to believe that no stone would be left unturned, no mystery unsolved by the end of this thing.
Mhm.
I really hope that for a story that lasts over 25 years, man, I really hope that the ending does not drop the ball.
No, I definitely hear you on that one. I would say like, dude, well, you haven't really seen much of Egghead at all, but I would say just to follow up on that, do you feel as though Oda is fixing some of the problems that had occurred with some of the later arcs, or just wait and hope?
I'm more of just wait and hope, frankly. I haven't
Mm,
read beyond Gear 5, frankly.
okay.
Um, I've got some catching up to do.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, Jay, your turn. Do you think with again with some of the problems that we've had all mentioned in some of the later chapters, do you feel as though those issues will be resolved as One Piece comes to a close?
It doesn't, at least as how the story has been laid out before now, it doesn't seem like Oda's going to take the time to actually do that. And I think that's kind of the appeal and how he's always treated the property of like,
Mhm.
oh, let me give you these tidbits and let your imagination run wild. Because that's, again, the whole idea of scope is that you can only pinpoint certain areas, like you can only spotlight certain areas. So like as Jack mentioned earlier, talking about Walpole's father, like, okay, are we ever
Mhm.
going to get his name and background? And it's like all these threads is what makes the world vivid and alive, but it's not like you need closure on those things. So
Yeah.
obviously the main story as it pertains to the main cast is what's going to be the focus and at least the closing, the story. So yeah, if you want answers to everything, like what are those giant angels, or even like what is the void century, or how deep he's going to go to explore that, or even emu, um, is it Emu? The person on the empty throne.
Or
Um,
im or him. I
okay.
it's a weird another word. We've ran into three weird pronunciations
But anyways, my
today.
point just
Yeah,
being
I'm
is
sorry.
like
Yeah.
doesn't need fleshing out because it's never always been about the solutions or the reveal. It's always been
Hmm.
about the journey. And it's like we care about the destination, we care about the journey too, but it's like those tangents that build upon the world, those building blocks don't need to be capped because it can be left up to the imagination, and that's what's so wonderful about it.
Oh, it's very, very true. I would say like there, as you said, there were some mysteries. Like we don't need to have all the mysteries resolved. But for instance, like we don't necessarily need to know how Blackbeard got his powers, how he did. But I guess like the bigger question that would need to be answered would be would he how would our crew overcome him and the links that he's gone to amass the power that he has? You know, something like that. Am I correct in saying something like that along with your lines of thinking?
Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So with that, I want to thank everybody thank you all for coming on again, and thank you, dear listeners, for this fun episode. So, until next time, we shall see you later.